Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the V8 Veterans, brought to you by Racecraft Simulations for the Split 2 action of Season 22, Round 6 out at Okayama this evening. I'm your commentator, Hamish Munro, joined, as always, by the 6-time V8 Vets champion, 50-plus wins next to his name, Scott Gamble. Scotty, an exciting 200k race on our hands here tonight, 54 laps inside the Land of the Rising Sun for Okayama, and it's a short, tight track, made even tighter now by the lines that these Gen 3 cars can take. We saw some exceptional racing in Split 1 on Thursday, we saw some exceptional racing last night with Split 4, and now the Split 2 drivers get to have a go.
Yeah, how you going, Hamish? Thanks for the introduction, and welcome to all those watching over on YouTube tonight. Looking forward to this, Okayama. We haven't been here for quite some time, and it's new for us in the Gen 3, so it's going to be exciting. You mentioned about the different lines that we have to take to perhaps what we did in Gen 2, so it tightens the track up just that little bit more, and drivers will be aware of that, so it's going to be very, very interesting, and we're getting up to that boiling point now of this championship. Round 6, can you believe it? It has moved on very quickly.
It has indeed. It's, all of a sudden, it's crunch time now for some drivers, where we look ahead to the final 4 rounds of the season after this week, and that's where it's all going to get really, really important. You would hope you've got a couple of drop rounds up your sleeve before the end of the season, but then you also come out of that thinking, well, how well can I be placed before the final undroppable round out at Phillip Island? For tonight, though, we trickle our way on down towards the Okayama International Circuit here in Japan, and we'll check out the track map just now, brought to you by Google Earth. And Jay Kennedy over at SimSpeed provided me with these images. So not too far west of Osaka and Kobe, Japan. So we trickle our way on down as cars start to come out for qualifying. We can check out this beautiful, beautiful circuit here out in Mimisaka, Japan. It was opened in 1990 on the 18th of November, of course. 11 turns, 3.7 Ks or 2.3 miles if you're reading it in the old language, in the clockwise direction. We all started on the main straight, and it's a tough run through turn number 1, Scotty, where drivers are going to have to get this thing pulled up as quickly as possible, get it tucked in, and hope and pray that the car turns and does not end up in the sand trap on the outside, and then run up through Williams and Moss S's for 2 and 3, and then in the almost infamous turn 4 at this point up at Atwood, where you're trying to run the inside of the corner as much as possible, whilst maybe even trying to get a nice run down towards turn 5 at the end of the back straight.
Yeah, absolutely. That run out of turn 4, it's a double apex corner, it was for me. So it's all about getting that power down. There's a slide uphill. We've got less aero on these Gen 3 cars. So it's all about maximising traction as you head down to, aptly named, turn 5, the hairpin. It is a hairpin. Big braking zone for these drivers, and not much of a marker, Hamish, to navigate where to be able to brake consistently. So drivers are going to have to be on their game, especially when they go to make a pass. There will be passes made there tonight, but get around turn 5. Interesting gear selection here. Generally, you want to go to second gear, but third gear was the favoured gear to get around there. Up into a revolver where you sort of, again, you want to cut the inside of the track, get your left hand tyres up on just onto the grass and maximise that speed all the way off to the track. You've got your right-hand sides going over the ripple strip, over that little red spot there that we can see on this track map. There's a bit of an exit. I'm not sure what part of the track that one is, but it's a different part. Piper, turn 7, hardest corner on the track for me, Hamish. It was one of these ones where consistency was one of these things I struggled as a driver at this track to get right. Even though it's a 90-degree corner, it just really threw you off with the curbs there, and there's a nice little run as you head down to Redmond.
Yeah, and then, pretty much making sure through 7 that you aren't getting caught out by any other drivers alongside. Very, very easy, obviously, to catch too much curb or grass on the outside, flicking your car in the way of others or even into the wall as well. Up at Redmond, though, again, trying to hook in that car as tight as possible whilst trying to defend the inside line of turn 9 up at Hobbs as well. So you want to try and crisscross your way between those corners to keep the cars in behind you. Then it's a run down Mike Knight corner. That's the start of the pit entry. One of the toughest pit entries we have on the calendar here, Scotty, because you've got to come in, you've got to be cautious, because if you overshoot, you're going to end up back out on the road and you're going to end up with a pit lane penalty alongside you as well. And then run the run round through turn 11 for final corner. You're just trying to follow the car behind you, tuck in as tight as possible behind them to see if you can get the slipstream in the run to make an overtake down at turn 1.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite a good track, as you mentioned. It's quite long. It's 3.7 kilometres. It's we're looking at a really good lap time around here of a 131, mid 131s. It'll be interesting to see how the drop off goes tonight with tyres, and that's something we should really talk about, is this new debris model and how it's going to affect the drivers and the cars over the distance, over the 200 kilometres tonight here on this track. For my experience, that debris may change the lines that come available to drivers as this race goes on, especially the marbling.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a point of contention tonight for some drivers. They didn't really have to deal with it last week at Belle Isle, but at the likes of Magny Core and the Nürburgring and Brands Hatch, they have had to deal with that debris tyre model, the debris and the tyre model. Tonight, I think it's going to be just as bad, because there is so much more gravel that can then be brought back on the track, namely around those danger zones, around turn 1, around turn 4, down at turn 5, and at turn 7 as well. So drivers are going to have to be cautious, they're going to have to be careful, and they're going to have their wits about them all night long, Scotty, if they're going to hope to try and get anything out of this race this evening as best as they can. We've got a heap of chats out there as well joining us here this evening. Of course, we've got Luke Holman, Sean Vandermill, Adrian Zeal, Wayne Sanderson, Mr. Nimbus in the chat. Mr. Robinson, Dane Palmer joining us as well, Rebecca Bagan and Brett Horsell. So great to have you all alongside with us for the ride and for the journey of tonight's racing for the V8 Veterans here at Okayama. It's going to be a massive event, Scotty, and a massive end to our season coming up for the next 4 weeks. Of course, Snetterton next week, then we're out at the Red Bull Ring, then it's an Australian doubleheader to end out the series at Sandown and Phillip Island for our Enduro at the end of the season. So it's a massive couple of weeks. Leading into this race, our championship standings, well, pretty much it's been one man at the top all season. The orange number has not changed off of Logan Barnett's car. He leads the championship before drop rounds on 888 points with 3 wins next to his name, the most of anybody in the series. And 881 points is Jason Spriggs in behind. So 7 points separates them. Interestingly enough, Scotty, Barnett, 13 bonus points next to his name. Spriggs has 7. So without the extra 6 bonus points, this would be a 1-point game between the two of them leading into this race here tonight. And then a further 81 points back off of Spriggs is Wayne Sanderson in P3 on 800 points at the moment. And then his teammate, Jim Caperonis, is in P4 on 779. So it's a 2-horse race. It's not quite as close as we've had it previously in other seasons where it's been multiple drivers in it for the championship. At this stage, it is the 2-horse race between Barnett and Spriggs. But after those 2 drop rounds are calculated and taken out of the equation, we may get a couple of more drivers propping up and getting an opportunity to battle it out for this championship as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting how that will change the dynamics of that championship leaderboard once those drop rounds come into effect. But at the moment, Jason Spriggs, he is doing everything that he has to do right, and a lot better than what he's done in the past 2 seasons. He's been super consistent. He's putting the pressure on Logan Barnett, who has been the standout in this split all season pretty much long. I mean, sure, he had Nürburgring where he finished P11, but he did make solid grounds there. But apart from that, he's driven this series pretty faultless at this stage, and along with Jason Spriggs. So kudos to those 2 drivers. Another couple of ones, we looked at Peter Baxter. He was at P8, I believe, which it shows that super consistency. That can bring you in. Yes, he may not have had those great top 10 finishes or top 5s, but he's been so consistent this season, and we were both surprised to see him up in P8.
Yeah, we were indeed. And I think as well, Brett Fisher inside the top 10. Back in P9 in the championship, and as well Jamie Peters P11. I think as well Matt McMillan's had a very consistent season too, so him and Peters, who've been around each other on track all season, they're only a point separated between each other. The difference is McMillan's had a top 10, Peters has had none. So those guys are together in the point standings. Michael Schroeder, Scotty Van Loon's up there too, as well as Mick Clifton and Ricky Hyde as well. But as we lead ourselves out of qualifying, we then lead into the 5-minute warm-up, where these cars and these drivers are going to have to get themselves prepared, and try and separate themselves from the rest of the pack. Practicing your race starts probably the most imperative thing they can do in this warm-up, because you want to maximize that race start as best as possible around here. Try and get the run down to turn 1 early. It is such a tough track to pass. It's so easy to defend here, that if you can get that lead early, Scotty, you may not lose it for the whole race, barring a mistake in the pits as well.
Yeah, absolutely. These starts are crucial. There's been a lot of chatter in the V8 Veterans Discord about, how do you go about getting the best start here or on certain tracks with these new Gen 3. So drivers are really, really having to adapt and come to terms not only with the starts, but also how this car handles over a journey. The tyre model, it's different, the less aero, the braking dynamics, the fixed setup. So there's a lot for these drivers to take into it. Yes, it makes it even for them, but they're also having to adapt week in, week out to find the maximum performance from it. So really interesting, and really looking forward to seeing how these drivers, Hamish, and we talked about this in pre-show about how some of these drivers jumped out of the box very early and came to grips with this car, and others struggled, but now they're starting to show their signs. They're starting to push forward, and they're catching that gap that those others got on them early on when this Gen 3 come out. So this is going to be interesting. We're at round 6, so that's when things start heating up and drivers start learning and adapting further, over this 10-round series.
Yeah, I think it's more or less going to come down to who can stay consistent across these final couple of rounds, and where they can situate themselves across these final couple of rounds as well, and how well they can actually, stay in amongst that front pack. I think for Barnett and Spriggs, they need to try and just stay inside that top 5. And if one of them drops out of that, then they more so need to try and stay inside of that top 5 as well. But I think not only that, if you're going to if you're finishing towards the back and you're one of those guys, you want to try and make sure that the other person's back there with you, so they're also forced to have a drop round. You don't want to get caught up in a situation where you're on the ragged edge. You've already used your 2 drop rounds. They've got them in their pocket, and You're having to drive clean and consistent, and they're able to, go balls to the walls pretty much and try and push those cars as hard as possible towards the final round.
Yeah, absolutely. If you go into round 8 and 9 and you've still got 2 drop rounds in your pocket with really good finishes leading up, you're in the prime position to be able to go out and, one of my favourite sayings, just send it. And so that's a little warning sign that drivers may have to be aware of, especially those towards the front. They may come under a lot more challenge for those who have played this series a little bit more carefully earlier on, kept their drop rounds in their pocket, and they've got them to spend come round 8 and 9.
So, what do we think? Because obviously Barnett has been the driver of the season thus far, Scotty. He's been the one to beat. He's been the driver that's been in contention the whole way. Of course, he's your teammate as well. And then Spriggs, we know, has had Split 1 capabilities the whole time that he's been back in Split 2. Do we see anything happening? Do we see Barnett losing this at some point? Do we see Spriggs being able to win? I mean, they're incredibly close, closer than what I anticipated before I checked the points tonight. And, could we possibly think that Barnett could give this away? I mean, he's had 3 wins this season. At this stage, he has not taken 2 wins in a row. He's only won them in odd rounds. So we come in tonight for round 6. It doesn't look good for him based on the stats.
It's interesting with the Split 2 statistics and how they've been over many seasons, and you would say it would go against him. But, I could say from a team perspective, we've worked pretty hard, and I know that Logan, he's been working really hard on it. He's been using the data that's supplied to him. He's been bouncing off Macca and myself in the vets chat that we have there to really maximise his performance. But in that, we know Jason Spriggs is going to be strong, especially when we come down to tracks like Sandown and Phillip Island. He's a bit of a specialist there. I did have a little sneak on some of his laps throughout the week at this track, and he was running extremely fast in a quali trim. So look out for Jason Spriggs in quali. I think he'll be quite fast. Will Logan be able to get him over the race distance? We'll just have to wait and see. But there'll be other drivers move up and down the field tonight, and it'll be interesting to see how they fare too.
So we'll have to find out who's really going to be in the hot seat. Could we see maybe a surprise package come out of this? We know that Dean Logsdale's been quite strong the last few weeks. Scotty, of course, got driver of the day last week and also got his first P2 in Split 2. Do we think Dean can back that up here tonight and go the distance and maybe even possibly get his first win next to his name as well?
I don't think Dean's too far away from breaking out for that win. He had a breakout race last round, and that would have done his confidence and the team over at AJR an immense amount of relief and pressure gone off Dean, because I think he's a driver that's put himself under a lot of pressure. He's got the pace, he's got the ability to perform, and probably hasn't been able to nail it until last round, and he absolutely did. It was a fantastic drive by him, and he thoroughly deserved that Driver of the Day award. So, yeah, I do think Dean can match it up with these guys. I think absolutely. I also think this is one of those breaking through seasons for him, Hamish. We expected it last season from him. It's come a season later, and I think as we go on, perhaps next season or the following seasons, we may even see further from Dean. So he's a driver to watch for the future, that's for sure.
Well, we'll have to wait and see how they go here tonight. 54 laps to come your way, 200 Ks of Okayama. And this is our starting grid for round 6 of the Racekraft Simulations V8 Veterans Season 22. Jason Spriggs will start on pole position ahead of his championship rival in Logan Barnett on the front row of the grid. Dean Logsdale, Stacey Boyd, they'll line up on the second row with Paul Burns and Damon Fisher in behind them. Chris Blanchard and Matt Scholes will then start for P7 and P8 with Sean Vandermillen and Simon Heddersheed for your top 10. Andrew Hoffman and Ricky Hyde will then make up your top 12 here this evening as we move back to Dave Arney and Daniel Sheriffs for your top 14. Mick Clifton, Matt Stoyles will then line up ahead of Jamie Peters and Matt Muggleton. Muggleton being a bit of a breakout star this season. Those guys will start ahead of the all-Viger 10th row of the grid of Chad and Rick for the top 20. Matt McMillan, Jim Caparonis, former teammates, and line up alongside each other on the 11th row of the grid with Simon Haynes and Stephen Greck for your top 24. So move back to Jason Fewens, Wayne Sanderson, Todd Duggan and Scott Weston for your top 28 with Shane Randall and Troy Sipple, your top 30. I know Shane was disappointed in his qualifying efforts. He knows his pace is higher up the field. It's a bit of a similar scenario to Bella last week. We'll have to see how well he can push through the field here this evening. Brett Fisher, Adrian Zeal. In behind them with Nick Hasler, Richard Barella, Derek Lovegrove and Michael Schroeder, your top 36 cars on the grid. With Peter Baxter, Brett Taylor and Jeremy Bush making up our 39 car grid here this evening for round number 6.
Yeah, interesting grid. There's some good standout performance. Congratulations to Jason Spriggs. He's got it on pole. That's excellent for him and would do his confidence really good. Good to see Stacey Boyd up there. Paul Burns being super consistent over the last few rounds there. Blanchy's back up there. Skulls. We haven't really seen Skulls push up, so perhaps he'll have a good run tonight. Vandy Millen, he's got himself up in the top 10. Same as Hedderschild. All very good drivers pushing up into that top 10. So really good results by them.
So we await the lights to go up for Spriggs and Barnett on the front row. We know that both of those guys are the championship contenders at this point. Logsdale looks to spoil the party. Boyd, Burns inside your top 5 before we go racing. Burns could be on for a strong run here tonight. He's had a good couple of rounds. Fisher, Blanchard, Scholes, you need to keep an eye on them, as well as Vandermillen and Heddersheed. But for racing around Okayama, it's going to take patience. It's going to take dropping your ego out the window for the first few laps. Settle into that rhythm and don't push too hard, because we could end up with a scenario that we have safety car after safety car if they cannot control themselves here this evening. But lights are going to go up, revs are going to rise for Camaros and Mustangs everywhere. There's a little jump start in the background from one of the cars, but we are underway as Spriggs and Barnett get away nicely, as did Heddersheed. Further back as we lead into turn number 1 for the first time. Heddersheed's already made contact on the start with Fisher. Runs it wide into the sand, and there's a massive biffing and barging of Vandermeulen as they all run through turn number 1 on the sand for the first lap. No one stopped just yet. Can they keep it clean for the rest of the first lap? Well, it seems that they've gotten away without a scrape, but there will now be gravel down on the road at turn 1 there, Scotty. We mentioned it early. That's going to be something they're going to have to be careful of now, because we know that there can be biffs and barge at turn 1.
Yeah, absolutely. All chaos break loose there, Hamish, on that starter. There was 4 cars wide. There was gravel flying everywhere. There was a couple of cars off, real big checkups. But Logan Barnett, he got it done. Got the jump at the start. He leads this field away onto the first lap. As you got Jason Spriggs, Logsdale, Burns, Fisher. Boyd dropped 2 positions. Hamish back to P6. Blanchard held his own. Ricky Hyde, he was one I was going to mention, but he jumped 4 positions out of all that up into P8. Scholes, he went down 1. Another big mover was Matthew Stalls up 6 positions into P10. That rounds out your top 10.
That was a great job from them as Randall is off the road at turn 7. I think there might have been some contact possibly with Schroeder as literally immediately before Randall's off the road. Schroeder's going past him, so I have a feeling there might have possibly been some contact between them. Is there a wall wound on Schroeder's car? I'll have to see the front angle of it. Oh, doesn't look like it, but we'll have to wait and see if Race Control give us anything to boot off of that one. But lap 2's now begun. Championship leader Logan Barnett leads the way. Spriggs, Logsdale, Burns and Fisher, your top 5. That's Damon Fisher. Stacey Boyd, Chris Blanchard, Ricky Hyde, Matt Scholes, Matt Stoyles, your top 10 as Peters and Fisher for Brett are battling in the background. I think some cars may have ended up running wide at turn 1.
Yeah, there is, and there's still a lot of marbles down there. Perhaps that's catching a few drivers out. You do feel it through the steering wheel, feel it underneath the car. You do have that loss of grip, that loss of traction. But, yeah, what a start. That was quite hectic. That will put Randall on a different strategy. He is dead last at the moment, Hamish, so expect a different strategy for your boys over at Simrigs Infinity Motorsport. I hope he makes ground tonight. He has shown some really good pace over the last few rounds as well. But as we're having a little bit of a look there, a bit of a change up, we've got Adrian Zill. He had a little look down the inside, didn't quite get that one done. But, yeah, he might be sporting a new paint early on there on that front bonnet, Hamish. We'll have to check that out later on.
Yeah, we'll have to see what good old Zippy is running here tonight. It looks like something different on the front of that car. Let's go onto the roof. Oh, it's an RSW graphic. Is it an RSW graphics livery or is it somebody else? We need a good view of this car.
RSW does the... Oh, there's a car off there on the right-hand side.
Yeah, that was Rick Viger.
Rick Viger.
Yeah, Rick Viger off the side of the road.
Yeah, so he'll go on to an alternate strategy here. as he gets that car around, back up and running. A couple little blinking I'm seeing there. Maybe it's my screen, I'm not sure, but
No, it was
I have
Randall
noticed
having a blink.
there has
Sure.
been some graphics issues for drivers out on this track, so that will be something to keep on touch. But anyway, RSW Graphics, they're the guys who painted the car for him, Hamish. So I think that's just an RSW Graphics sponsored logo. To me, it looked like a chicken head on the front, but I'm not sure. So we'll have to wait and see.
We might have to drop the kayfabe for a minute just to try and get a good look. So there's definitely a chook on there, but it's about who is the cowboy that is trying to wrangle that rooster.
See, Schroeder, he sends it up the inside.
Yeah, he got up the inside.
Ewan's is going to get a run here too.
I'm not sure who is wrangling roosters on that zippy Adrian Zeal car. He might have to tell us exactly who it is, but he's now lost a spot to Jason Fewens. This is only the second round for Fewens this season, so he'll actually, he'll need to get a move on if he doesn't want to have to drop down into split 3 next season, as there's already a car for the background. That was Barella running it wide into the sand, so there's more and more gravel getting brought onto this Okayama circuit, but it is not phasing the leaders as Barnett, Spriggs, Logsdale, Burns have now all separated themselves by just over a second apiece. And they've got Damon Fisher in behind them as well, but Boyd is under attack from Blanchard already, and the pressure's on the American inside the top 10.
Yeah, Boyd, he's been having a couple of good rounds. He didn't start the season that well, Hamish, but he qualified beautifully tonight into P4, dropped a couple of positions, but yeah, you're absolutely right. He's under pressure by that WKP with the Christopher Blanchard behind him. He's been driving a little bit better too of late, so good to see the confidence up around in that stable. But we definitely need a please explain in the chat from Zippyfly. Make sure the chat out there gets on to him, ask him what's going on with the rooster. I could say it another name, but I'm not going to on the stream, mate.
Yeah, it's we do not want anything to have a cold on our stream here this evening for sure. Definitely not from Zippy. But for Boyd, well, he's had a bit of an up and down run this season, Scotty. Of course, took his first win last season in our final season of Gen 2. This season, he hasn't quite been to the heights that he was once at here in the Gen 3 car. We'll have to see how he progresses throughout the year as he gets more and more up to scratch in the Gen 3 Camaro or Mustang if he decides to change over for next season. At the moment, though, he is in a tight battle with Chris Blanchard. Ricky Hyde's in this too. He's had a solo run. He's already up 4 positions. Biggest movers, though, thus far. Stephen Greck's up 10 into P14. Peter Baxter's up 11 into P26 at this stage. He's got 10th place in the championship. Matt McMillan putting all sorts of pressure on him. In behind, there's a slight knock with Schroeder, though. He's trying to get a wiggle on here. Schroeder wants to try and push his way forward if he can. Does he know that he's got a penalty coming his way at some point here, Scotty? That's why he's trying to force his way through. As Heddersheet's going slow at the final corner, I feel he may have got a bit sideways.
Yeah, I'm not sure. You would suspect one's going his way as we see Brett Fisher from Shadow Racing. He is in pit lane at the moment. I'm not sure if he's got a drive through or whether this is a part of his strategy for an early pit stop playing for a safety car later on, but we'll have to wait and see on that. Simon Hedderstill down 12 positions. Gee whiz, that's disappointing because he has got the pace, Hamish. He showed it in quali. He's just, geez, you know, when things rain, it pours, doesn't it, for you as a driver? And you go through these runs where perhaps things just don't go your way, and that seems to be the season for Simon at the moment.
Yeah, it really does. It just seems that he hasn't quite hit the same heights that he's previously had prior to now, and he's trying to chase his own tail possibly as well. So for Heddersheet, well, he has to try and fight his way back forward throughout this field here tonight. He's now down 12 positions in this race, as he has Todd Duggan just ahead of him. And these guys have had a lot of battles over the years, have Toddy and Simon. They should know each other well, but they are both feisty competitors on track. And, you know, I think they can both agree that they're both feisty. And they've definitely had their fair share of tussles against each other and against other drivers throughout the series history as well. Where is your friend Jim from Mr. Dane Palmer? Mr. Caparonis is currently P15, up 7 positions and just ahead of his teammate Andrew Hoffman, who's down 5 at this stage.
Yeah, interesting result for Jim. Probably didn't qualify where he would have liked, but he's made good ground early on in this race. You know, we're on lap 6, so to be up 7 positions into P15, he'd be happy with that. He's got Hoffy behind him. He's got Gretsch in front of him, so he'll be eyeing on to get that move done early. There's a little bit of a gap there. You can see him already having a little look on the inside. Like, he is keen, Hamish, by the looks of the way he's driving this vehicle at the moment. He wants to get the move on, drag Hoffy, his teammate, through with him.
Yeah, he wants to try and force his way through at this stage on Stephen Grech and get the SCR cars another position higher with both of them aiming towards the top 10. I'm a little bit disappointed tonight, actually, from Wayne Sanderson, speaking of SCR. Not quite running where he has been this season, Scotty. We're kind of used to seeing him around the top 10 at this point, and now he's actually probably positioned where I would have expected him to be earlier in the season, around, you know, the top 25 mark, and just in a battle with Hedersheed and Sipple, but not what we were to expect at this point in the season from Wayne.
Yeah, it's probably down on where he would want to be. Absolutely, he's had some good stellar runs over the last few rounds as well. So a few drivers, like I said, were coming to grips with this car, but perhaps tonight something didn't click with him, whether it be the set-wise, the track itself. It is a little difficult. Took quite a bit to get your head around this track to adapt to this Gen 3, the different lines that you needed, the braking bias that you needed to change. And yeah, perhaps it hasn't gelled with him this track, but he's still up a few positions, running around in P23. He's got Sipple behind him. We'll have a look at the points for Troy. He's been amongst it this season, Hamish. There is no doubt about it. And obviously, Hedersheed, he dropped back, who's just in front of Wayne. He's dropped back those 12 positions. So, yeah, we'll have to see. It'd be interesting to see what the drivers are thinking about their strategy at this point of the race, because, you know, the get home lap, we were capped at 70%, Hamish, which was 93 litres of this 133 litre tank. So it does change the strategy a little.
Yeah, it makes the critical lap around lap 24, 25, depending on the fuel usage. And literally, the lap difference is like 0.1 of a litre. That is the difference in when your critical lap is throughout this race. Obviously, safety cars can then change that depending on how much fuel you can save as well. But yeah, around about that lap 24, 25 range, they needed, I believe it was roughly 120, I think 128 and a half or 124 and a half litres to get home, again, depending on that fuel usage. Which pretty much saw an equal split of around about 60 litres for both stops. Of course, still needing those 2 CPSs this evening to make their way home. As I said, to get home, though, you could probably pit on lap 2 and then get to the critical lap and still make it home on your fuel, as Scholes and Duggan come in for either their stops or possibly some penalties either of their way.
Yeah, it's an interesting ploy whether drivers will come in early, just top up fuel, look for a little bit of track position, Hamish, while they can, and then do their second stop, like you say, around that lap 24, 25. But it is a long, long way on that last stop, that last set of tyres to make it. You're talking almost 30 laps. So it is a long way, especially on this track surface, Japan. It is a high wearing track surface for these tyres, so it'll be interesting to see how drivers adapt. Perhaps safety cars later on, if they come into play, could help out those drivers who pit early.
I was about to say, could we see a safety car dictating that? Because if there is a safety car around that critical lap, well, the whole field should come in, shouldn't they? And then they will all be in the same boat of running 30 laps to the end. The opposite end of that stick, though, is have they calculated their fuel properly? Are they aware of the tank limitations here this evening? Do they think they've got 133 litres available to them, which then completely changes the critical lap from what would normally be lap 18 on a full tank, again, to that lap 24, 25 mark, depending on their fuel usage. So that could also be some dictations here this evening. If they've calculated the fuel properly, if the strategists have done their job properly and checked that limitation on the tank, well, that will then determine how well their strategy has come together for this race. As Matt McMillan and Adrian Zeal come into pit lane this time by. A couple of pit stops have already happened. Vandermeer and Peters and Fisher and Shane Randall have all taken their first scheduled stop of the race. I noticed Randall, we saw that he was off the track earlier on, That moment was with Michael Schroeder. I've had a message from Race Control claiming that they had come together. There should be a penalty coming Schroeder's way. For Randall, though, he was catching traffic similarly to last week at Belle Isle. So he's come in early again to try and fight his way forward in clean air, similar to Belle Isle. He did take, though, his regular amount of fuel. There was enough in the tank to take his regular 64.5 litres that he was going to take in the first stop. So it is now normal running for Randall in the rest of this race. It just means he has to do a long stint for the first stint before he can get on those new tyres and fill up the tank again.
Yeah, it's an interesting tactic, the way that this can work, especially with these Gen 3 cars. It's changed up how the safety car can be applied and benefit drivers, perhaps, Hamish, throughout the field by taking that early stop. And then if there is a safety car around that critical lap, or just after that critical lap to get home, and they can do their second stop, well, they benefit massively. Like, I'm talking massive amounts of benefit by doing it. So perhaps something admin and those that can know may be able to talk about it, because there is a definite distinctive advantage for drivers doing that, playing for a safety car, hoping and praying one comes out just after that critical lap number for them. So, you don't want to see that. You want to see everyone racing and driving as hard as they can. But interesting that you did mention about the fuel capped at 70%. I was one of those drivers, Hamish, who was sitting on the grid, and I said to myself, I wonder whether there's any sub-regs that have changed the fuel load. And while I was sitting on the grid, 3-minute countdown, I opened it up and realised we were 70% capped at 93 litres. So I just caught that in time myself.
Oh, well, at least that didn't cost you in the end. On board with Chris Blanchard at the moment. He's still in his battle with Boyd and Hyde inside the top 10 as well. I think for Randall and Zeal and co, I think them just getting out of the traffic might have been the main thing, because obviously if you can't find a way around anyone else on track, then sometimes it's better just to get in that clean air and try and let your lap times do the overtaking for you, and then let that natural regression of cars you were catching happen when they actually take their pit stops. So we'll see if it works out for those 5 drivers or 6 drivers now who have come into the lane. And if anyone else follows them in as well, I would expect drivers probably to come in, the majority of them, around about that lap 15. And again, if we then get a safety car around that critical lap point, that's only a 10-lap stint on tyres and on fuel. So if they're playing for a safety car, we may see them come in for 10 litres or so, and then hope and pray for a safety car, and if there isn't one, then they just come in on critical lap, fill the car up. Or we may see them take longer fuel and try and push this stint out as long as possible in the hopes that a safety car will come out and save them for their shorter stop towards the end.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can, there's a couple of ways you could do it. It's all about that critical lap number, that lap 24 to 25, like you mentioned, and how you go about balancing that with your fuel loads. Whether you take a large amount early, take that hit so it's only a shorter stop later, which may benefit you if there is a safety car later on, because you've got a shorter stop. You can jump a lot of those who took less fuel, perhaps, and they've got to take a longer load under the safety car if there is one available tonight. We'll have to wait and see whether that plays out. It's very interesting. It changes up the tactics, but like I mentioned, there is something perhaps that needs looking at there within that ruling, and perhaps those pit stop windows wasn't so much noticeable in Gen 2, even though it was there, but it really has shown itself in Gen 3, especially the way these cars are and the way they handle it, how close actually the field has become and compressed with that less aero and the fuel burns and the tyre wear deficit. Everything's a little bit more closer now, so it's a little bit harder to skip away at the front, although at the front at the moment, our drivers have made that break. Jason Spriggs has the fastest lap of a 1:32.139 at this stage.
Yeah, he does. Barnett's fastest time, 1/10 slower than that lap by Spriggs. They set those quite a few laps ago at this point. Logsdale, in fact, has actually done a faster lap at race pace than Barnett has. He did a 1:32.21. Burns did a 0.85 in the 32s. Fisher did a 0.95 in the 32s. As Scholes, Fewens and Chad Viger bring their cars into pit lane this time by as well. This battle, though, is the closest we have on track. That is Ricky Hyde and Chris Blanchard fighting it out. Boyd is getting somewhat of a reprieve from Blanchard, since Hyde is now getting on the attack on the back of the WKMP car. And the 801 sim racing driver from across the ditch will be hoping to get this car along past him. But I do know, even though Ricky is from across the ditch, I believe he actually does live here in Australia as well.
I think he does. I think that is right, Hamish. I do remember one time something being said about that where he was. Perhaps it was Queensland or something. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been driving. He's another one of those drivers who's improved immensely this season. Hamish, taken to this Gen 3, absolutely fantastic, and been applying it with Paul Burns, his teammate, and some of the others around him as well. I see that Nash as well has been driving well at times. So, yeah, pretty happy for the 801 sim racing lads, and especially for Ricky and Paul Burns. I think they're driving beautifully. We're seeing them consistently now as a team, two-driver team in this split two, even though they've got other drivers here that are in the top 10.
Well, it's technically a three-driver team because they've also got Matty Scholes further back in the field. Here tonight is unfortunately down quite a few positions. You know, how the mighty have fallen. The former Season 18 champion, as Jim Caparonis has been spun round at turn 5. He has to wait for the traffic. Randall nearly gets caught up in that one. So that was close. I think Randall might need a new pair of jocks after that one. I think there might be a couple of GT stripes on that OMP seat on the Infinity Motorsports car. But for Caparonis, he now has to try and work his way forward and see if he can fight his way past the 501 of Randall just ahead of him. As we continue on forward as well. SC being built here. I would assume that means safety car Jack Oz is being built, possibly. I don't know. From the chat. Is it like a Lego set they're building towards a safety car at this point? Maybe that's what Jack is referring to in the chat?
It could be. There could be a few cars carrying a little bit of damage out there, Hamish. And as we know with these V8s, the more damage, the longer you carry that damage, just even if it's a little bit on the front end, the higher risk you have of a blown engine. So perhaps that's what he's referring to, that we're getting the laps done, might be a bit of damage. Perhaps we're going to find a car with a blown engine soon. But gee whiz, look at that Deborah's coming. It's spewing out of the back of that car there, which is Daniel Sheriff's. He obviously picked up a little bit, but fantastic visuals. Not so great as a driver, I can tell you.
I've just had the confirmation in the chat. Jack's actually making his Supercoach team. We play Supercoach every year in a paid league. He said he wasn't going to play this year. He's definitely now been sucked in once again. So I look forward to him being in my league once again for that one. I recall the time we had that in the Vets at one stage. But we've been playing strong for the last 3 years. It's our 4th year that we're now playing in our league. I think we have about 15 paying members in our league. At this stage, we do a big awards night at the end of the season. We all get in our suits. We give out trophies and awards. It's a great time. So, but yeah, we enjoy it.
What is this for, though, Hamish? Explain it.
AFL, so AFL Supercoach. So
right.
You select players. Yeah, you select a team of players. Depending on how the players perform, they get scored out of, or depending on how many disposals or goals they get scored. And then that gets collected into your whole team score for the week, and you play against somebody else, and whoever gets the highest score gets a win. So, it's,
I understand now. Perhaps some of our New South Wales, Queensland people may not have understood. I'm sure they have something like that for rugby as well.
There is an NRL version. There is an NRL version of Supercoach as well, not just AFL. So, yeah, the handball fans of Queensland and New South Wales also get to enjoy it too for their particular sport. Yes,
very nice.
That was a cheap dig at rugby.
Yeah, well, we all love it, but getting back to the racing now, and I guess I suppose before we do, that is a good pastime. I know quite a few people who do get into the Supercoach, and they are quite passionate mob about it. But yeah, definitely good pastime, and looking forward to the footy season. Both codes actually starting up very soon. But at the front here, Logan Barnett, he's got his lead out, ladies and gentlemen, to just over 2 seconds. We've got to Jason Sprigg. Dean Longstaff, he's held his own again tonight, Hamish, driving very, very well, but we do see him 3 seconds back to Spriggs at the moment.
I know the Team AJR motto is been rising, been rising and still rising, or whatever it is. But Longstaff seriously is putting on a Luke Ullman-esque performance this season. Do we see them getting 2 cars into Split 1 next season, Scotty, with Ullman and Longstaff together?
Well, I think in Dean's scenario, he needs to get these podium finishes to put himself into contention. Perhaps his first couple of rounds weren't where he wanted to finish, but definitely last round was. If he can finish off a result in the top 5 again, perhaps a podium here tonight, that'll put him really into confidence. And I talk about it quite often with drivers. Is V8 driving is a lot about confidence. When you're up high on confidence, you seem to drive just so much better. And at the moment, I would say that NZ car over at AJR, he's got a lot of confidence behind the seat and driving extremely well, as we see Logan Barnett, Jason Spriggs, Paul Burns, Damon Fisher, Stacey Boyd. So some of your top 10 have moved into the pit lane.
Yeah, Stoyles, Arnie as well. Grech and Logsdale have stayed out, as has Simon Haynes. Mick Clifton's also stayed out too. Is Clifton carrying damage at this stage? Yeah, he is just slightly. That car, I think, it's had more rebuilds this season than a child's Lego set at this point. He has been in the wars throughout season 22, has Mick Clifton, and you have to feel for him because he has been working hard to get faster and faster season upon season, Scotty. And unfortunately for him, he just gets caught out in either moments that he causes himself or that's caused by others, and he has nowhere to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought he had a breakout race last season where he came on strong, and that was at Monza. And I know it was the Gen 2, but gee whiz, the way he drove from that race onwards was absolute superb. And, you know, I was expecting him to follow it up. Perhaps he's one of those drivers, like we talked about earlier, that just is taking their time to come to grips with this new Gen 3, and it's caught him out a couple of times, and perhaps other drivers have caught him out. But, you know, overall, the Split 2 racing this season has been very clean, the cleanest of all the splits to date. We'll have to see how tonight's. We know there's a few incidents on the board already.
Well, it's been relatively clean at this stage. No safety cars called just yet, and drivers have been really keeping themselves in check. But I think the one caveat we have to remember, Scotty, and I think it's actually quite important at this circuit more so than others, is the old 10 p.m. time slot. When it hits 10 p.m. for the Vex, when it hits midnight for the Kiwis, as Clifton brings it in, is that where we start to see them drop off a little bit? And is that where we start to see the old jitterbugs come out and cars start to fall off the wayside? We're pretty much, we're 16 minutes into this race, 16 laps, 25 minutes. So we're probably an hour or so away from that happening, but it's 54 laps. Anything can happen. And once we hit 10 p.m. for the race, that could, relatively speaking, be the time that we start to see drivers make mistakes.
Well, you're absolutely right. There is a fatigue factor in it, especially at this level. The intensity, the level has really increased over the seasons. And, yeah, we could see some fatigue, the 10 p.m. factor. There definitely is there in the V8 Vets, not only in Split 2, but you'll see it across the board in all the splits. As we'll see, you've got to be careful here as Dean Logstar has gone for that undercut on Logan Barnett. He's got it, but he's on cold tyres coming out of this turn 4, Hamish. So this is really going to open up for Logan. If Logan can get this power down, he will be looking at a pass coming up to the hairpin at turn 5.
The problem now for Logsdale is he cannot let Barnett or Spriggs through. He came into pit lanes at a 23-second stop. He's had to let Barnett go. Barnett had a 31-second stop with a little bit of change. Spriggs had a 30-second stop and change. So for Logsdale, he's actually in the negative at the moment because he's going to drop 7 seconds to these guys come the next pit stop. So relatively speaking now, he's got 4 seconds he has to get back to Burns. So he has to have an 11-second gap over Paul Burns in P4 if he hopes to remain on the podium after the second pit stop later in this race. It is now make or break for Logsdale. He has to put the head down, has to tuck up in behind Barnett, cannot make mistakes like that, like missing the apex, and has to let Barnett pull him along and build that gap back to Paul Burns, who's still on screen in the background, and has his teammate Ricky Hyde to help him fight his way forward and chase down this gap that Logsdale has gotten himself in the pit stop.
he will be absolutely cussing himself that he did not defend that position as they ran down into turn 5, Hamish. He was on cold tyres. He just didn't quite have the grip out of turn 4. It's a hard corner. It's all about rear traction, and he just didn't have those tyres up to temperature at that stage to be able to get the power down to hold Logan off. But yeah, he'll be cussing himself. Perhaps on reflection, he'll go, maybe if I defended that position into turn 5, it was just one corner, got those tyres up to temp, perhaps he could have kept Logan behind for a few more laps, and that would have anything could have happened. As we see another one of these Angry Bird cars around, I'm not sure which one that one is. It's Chad Viger. It's one of the Vigers. So very unfortunate for him. He's had a season of up and down so far, Hamish.
He has indeed, as Fewens begins to battle with Brett Fisher here as well. Inside your top 20, they've got Andrew Hoffman just in behind them. One thing I want to point out, though, Shane Randall, who we saw get turned around halfway through lap 1, after the pit stop cycle, has found his way back one position above where he started this race. So what could have been if he hadn't have gotten spun around at the start of the race, but for now, he has to put his head down and try and fight his way forward as best he can. And at least he still has a net gain next to his name after facing the wrong way around halfway through lap 1.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because he would be on a lighter car at the moment, so he's going to have a good amount of pace, even though his tyres are dropped off. Once the other cars around him, their tyres drop off, he should have a net advantage over him as this lap continues till his next pit stop. So, yeah, not a bad play by Randall. I thought that was pretty good considering what happened early on in the race. Why not take that alternate strategy? And he applied that effectively and is up that one position from his starting point. So, well played.
He has got Jim Caperonis in behind him, who we saw make the mistake early on. He's yet to find his way around the 501. He doesn't want to push it too much, but he's trying to get a run down towards turn 1 on Randall. Has to back out of it. Stacey Boyd, he's in a battle here with Daniel Sheriff. So I believe Matt Muggleton might have had a little blink then. He just dropped back a little bit in the field. He's still going, though, at this stage. Some love for Dean Logsdale, though, from Luke Ullman in the chat. What a season that Ullman had last season in Split 2. Can Logsdale match it this season and fight his way to not only a podium finish here tonight, his second in a row, but also a spot in the top 3 in the championship at the end of the season? This is going to be a massive fight for him. Fisher's doing well as well inside the top 10. And for Logan Barnett, well, he could be on his way here, Scotty, to get his first win in an even-numbered round this season. He's only taken his wins in round 1, 3, and 5. It would also be his first 2 wins in a row this season to take his 4th, but we still have 34 laps to go. Still plenty of time for him to make a mistake or for something to cost him.
Yeah, absolutely. A long way to go. He would be well aware of it. He's a very good driver. You see him just pick up a little bit of dirt there as he does the big turn in for turn 2. You wouldn't want to do that too much. That can throw you right off, but he handled that perfectly. So we've got another car around here. It looks like that's Brett Fisher again from Shadow Racing. I think we called him earlier. He was finding a little bit of trouble, but he's dropped several positions as we see Nick Horsler go just past him. Bit of a fan favourite there, Nick Horsler from Angry Birds Racing, giving a lot of attention lately, especially on some of his YouTubes and that, along with from the OSR crew that he used to belong with. So yeah, good to see Nick out on track driving in Split 2. He's loving his racing at the moment too, I believe, too, Hamish.
Well, why wouldn't you? He's up 7 spots in this race, battling for P25 on the road with Troy Sipple ahead of him, currently claiming that position. They've got Mick Clifton involved in this battle too. Simon Haynes, P23. He's just in behind Wayne Sanderson at this point. These guys continuing their battle. Weston's up 7 into P21. Zeal, though, up 12 and into P20 is the old Zippy here, Scotty. He took a 20-second stop, though, on his last pit go-around, so he will give up some time in his next pit stop. But Zippy at the moment is driving a very clean race, driving an alternate strategy, and it's paying off for him at the moment.
Perhaps it is a Team AJR strategy, taking a little bit of less fuel. Maybe that's that new livery on the front of his bonnet, and he's got his rooster out, and he's going for it, mate. But he's driving very well. Good to see him up into the top 20. He has had one could say, probably not his best and probably one of his more frustrating seasons to date. He's found himself, whether it's of his own fault or of others around him, a lot of trouble leading up to this round. And, he just needs a breakout race where he has a nice, clean race. enjoys his racing again, finds a little bit of happiness, and that's what you want as a driver, and not take it too serious. And perhaps that is the change for Adrian tonight. P20 up 12. That's fantastic for him.
Yeah, I think this will be a massive confidence and ego boost for Zippy. I think running up and around the top 20 where he might feel he should be definitely will be helping him. I think it'll be giving him that good confidence boost, as I mentioned, really pushing him to do better week in and week out. And, he's got the rooster on the front of the bonnet. Is it maybe a bit of a new mindset for Zippy going forward? Is this maybe something, a new Zippy Zeal that we're seeing on track? Are we maybe seeing a cock-a-doodle-doo Zippy on track?
Yeah, well, I don't know, mate, but normally he has his... we've seen him in the past. He's had the Delta. He's had yourself too, Hamish, I believe. There was a bit of a love child thing going on there.
I'm glad there was some bad luck with me on the bonnet, I'll be honest with you, Scotty.
There was, I think Pato was there for a little bit as well. So he's definitely had, a lot of male love, you would say, going on. Delta was my favourite by far. I think we could all agree to that. She's a big rugby, thinking of your coaching thing. She's a big rugby fan, an NRL fan. We love seeing her on stage and love seeing her singing. But maybe it's a new leaf, turning over a new leaf. That rooster out there, he's definitely applying it. Good to see Luke Ullman in the chat too, Hamish, supporting his drivers while we're talking about Team AJR. He was driver of the day in Split 1. Bit of a breakout drive for him. I think he ended up P8 overall, drove extremely well in Split 1. Came from Split 2, ladies and gentlemen, so it is achievable. That top 10 dream in Split 1 coming from Split 2. Wasn't a championship winner at that stage, but he's up there now, and he got that promotion, Hamish, and he's taken it and ran with it, so very, very well done, Luke.
Yeah, it's a great job too, Mr. Ullman. Not looking like he's coming back to Split 2 next season at this stage, so if he can keep it going, he could be on for a great run. As Vandermillen runs it wide at turn 5, that lets Matt McMillan through. He's trying to chase down Jamie Peters at this stage. I mentioned those guys in a bit of a championship battle. These guys are battling for P10 in the title race. 1 point separates them. If they were to finish how they are right now, well, Peters would find himself inside the top 10 of the championship ahead of Matt McMillan.
Yeah, it's been good by Jamie this season. He's got that new PC going. He's definitely got that Rye internet connection sorted. So whatever he's done there is working for him, and he's driving with a lot more consistency. There's some results he could have perhaps done a little bit better. He found himself a couple of times there in trouble so far, but overall he's capitalised on them. He's got the best results that he could have given the circumstances he's been involved in, and driving absolutely beautifully, Hamish. And to see him get into the top 10, perhaps tonight, we'll have to wait and see, in the overall standings, would be a great achievement for him and a great achievement for Affinity Motorsports. So well done, Jamie Peters, really driving well.
Yeah, he's trying to force his way forward. Maybe trying to claim himself a Driver of the Day award this season as well. He's yet to get one. He's been very close in the past. I would argue at the moment, well, if I look inside the top 10, who has taken one who'd be eligible? Logsdale took one. Matt Stoyles took one this season. So did Matt Muggleton. The only other person, I believe Ricky Hyde hasn't taken one this season, but that's because he's normally not been qualifying and he's been fighting his way to the top 10. Tonight he has actually qualified, so he would be eligible at this stage, I would say. So, the only other people, maybe Sheriffs, maybe McMillan, could be the only ones who could really pip Peters for it tonight. But again, he would have to finish off where he is, or finish around that bottom of the top 10 to really, classify that for himself. As Muggleton sends it up the inside of Blanchard. A great job from Matt Muggleton, now up 10 positions. Took our Driver of the Day award at Nürburgring. It was between these two drivers during that round, but unfortunately for Blanchard, he gave up a position in the end, and that's what actually cost him, and gave Muggleton the Driver of the Day award for that day.
Well, I think Matt's been one of these surprise packets for Split 2. Yes, he's been out of the sim for a long time. As you know, I'm well aware of his pace, and I think he's just improving week in, week out, Hamish, and he's really showing it. He's back into the top 10 tonight. He made that move look easy on Blanchard. You've got to remember, Blanchard is a driver that's finished in the top 10 in Split 1. So by by his no means an easy pushover, and he made that look absolutely easy. I'm sure Blanchard was wise enough to let him go through, knowing they're on different strategies. But Matt Muggleton at the moment, wow, he's driving superbly, and that's great to see. I think Old Mate and Sons as well, seeing them. That's their number one driver at the moment in the top 10.
Andrew Hoffman is out of this race. He was given a penalty, Scotty, prior to that moment. Let me just quickly check what the message from Race Control was. It was contact causing incident. Andrew Hoffman had a pit lane penalty on lap 19. Oh, that was an incident on lap 19. So I suspect he's actually been given that. And unfortunately, he hasn't actually come back out of the lane since being given that drive-through penalty.
Yeah, okay, that's an unfortunate event. Who knows? There could have been some technical issues that led to that penalty for Hoffy, or perhaps he's just decided to fold it in tonight. But you know, which you can do at any stage. If you're in pit lane and you decide you've had enough of racing, you can do that. You don't have to let anyone know. It's totally your prerogative. But unfortunately for Hoffy, he is out tonight. So that leaves Caperonis to do all that work by himself. Hopefully he can make some more headway, given that that spin that we've seen early on. I'm not sure whether there was contact involved there or not. We'd have to have a look back on that. But, yeah, a bit of work for him to do.
Well, there's been some exceptional driving thus far here this evening. Jamie's saying bad luck Hoff in the chat. I do believe, I don't think it's technical issues. I know they did give him a penalty, so I'd say that's what that might possibly be for. At the moment, Daniel Sheriff's P11 on the road, and that is a blown engine, Scotty.
There it is.
Daniel
and it's
Sheriff.
a critical lap number, Hamish.
Yep,
they can make it home from here.
They can indeed, and he's parked on the road. Wow. What a bad time to cut over to Daniel Sheriff's. We cut to him as he blows the engine.
Everyone's going to fire into pit lane, and this is definitely going to benefit a few who pitted early, took on a bulk amount of fuel as much as they could. They might be able to make some positions in pit lane itself. So, interesting one. This will be a safety car. There is absolutely no doubt about it.
Yeah, the safety car is currently waiting at the end of pit lane for the leader, Logan Barnett. They've actually kept going, so I suspect they've actually come past the pit entry as they've called it. So these guys will now do an extra lap and then get picked up by the safety car. So this could actually play into their hands here, especially for the likes of Peters and Heddersheet have actually gone that little bit longer and they've got the clean air. These guys can now push on without getting held up. Other cars may get held up out of pits. And we might even see these guys stay inside the top 10 after this pit stop.
Yeah, I would think they may do because of that earlier pit stop. This will be everyone's minimum of second pit stop. As we've seen in perhaps some other splits, there was a 3-stop strategy available to those drivers who wanted to do that. Very hard to apply, but it was there and did work. So I would say everyone's going to be heavy on fuel, Hamish. They'll have a 90-odd litres, maybe 85 to 90 litres on board to make it home from here. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. This will really apply, compress the field back up again. As we know, safety cars, they can lead to more incidents, more safety cars. So be interesting on this restart.
So majority of the field into pit lane. The leaders have now come in. Logan Barnett, Dean Logsdale, Jason Spriggs all filed into the pit lane. We suspect
This
Paul
may
Burns
not-
and the rest of them to come in too.
This is not going to benefit Logsdale. He's got a big time deficit
Yeah,
to
he does.
give back.
Well, do we see him then take less this time, wait for it to go green, hope for a long green stint, and just try and build gap?
No, you'd have to take the whole lot. You wouldn't go for track position at this stage, I wouldn't think. I think you've got to get your fuel on to the end. You can make it home, so you would just take it and be on the same strategy as everyone else from here.
So Lovegrove and Taylor, do these guys come in under the safety car? You'd have to think they would. If they don't, this is a massive misplay from both drivers. Lovegrove is in. What about Brett Taylor? Is he going to misplay or is he going to come into pit lane? Barnett's come out back in the lead with Spriggs in behind. Is Brett Taylor going to pit? He's not. He's kept going. So he's going for track position.
Only way that may benefit him is if he done a stop at lap 23 or 24.
He didn't.
And
It was 15. 15 was his last stop. He needs another one to get home.
he absolutely does.
So that's a misplay from Taylor. He's going to end up at the back of the field whenever he traverses back through the pit lane. For Peters and Hedishi, they've actually now come out back in P12 and P13. So corrected order, they're where they were before they came into pit lane. But of course, Brett Taylor needs that extra stop. For Barnett, though, he will lead the field off the green flag. We're going to have a quick ad break from Racecraft Simulations, our title sponsor of the series. If you're interested in going and checking out a rig for yourself or just going to do some testing, head over to Perth Airport on Grogan Road and check out Racecraft Simulations. Have a chat to John over there. I'm sure he'll be happy to help you out, especially if you are living in the WA area or if you're on holiday over in the Perth area as well. Go and check them out. But please don't go anywhere. We'll be back very, very soon once we hit the green flag running as we hear from our sponsor, Racecraft Simulations. All right, we are back. Massive thank you to our title sponsor, Racecraft Simulations, for continuing to support the V8 Veterans across all 4 of our splits this weekend and every weekend of the Vets season here for Season 22. Logan Barnett is going to lead the field away once we go green. As I mentioned, if you want to go check him out, head over to, I believe it's 70 Grogan Road, Perth Airport. Go chat to John, try out some of their rigs and see if they've got a deal for you as well. Barnett will lead the way on the green flag. We'll see when he goes. I predict mid-apex of the final corner, Scotty. Probably the best spot he can do it. Stops the run down the straight and means that he can get a nice, clean getaway as well. If he picks to go there, it is up to him. So, towards the final corner we come. Safety car is in pit lane. Let's go green flags once again at Okayama. And he has gone right on apex, has Logan Barnett. As we rocket down towards turn number 1 once again.
You see all these cars at line astern. That's a beautiful frame just watching all these V8 supercars, even though it's on a restart coming down that Okayama straight absolutely nose to tail. You know, that was a beautiful picture there. Really like it. But a fantastic start by the 9.5 Sim Sports driver in Logan Barnett. Looks like Spriggs got away well, but had dropped back a little bit there, and he's got Dean Longstall all over him at the moment. And yeah, Paul Burns is there too. Ricky Hyde, both teammates running out in P4, P5. Strong performance by that team at this stage. Bit of gravel getting kicked up on these drivers. You can see that front end wash out from it too, Hamish. That was a great picture as well.
I think one thing that probably actually helped Dean Logsdale in this sense is he didn't actually give up the on-track time that he would have to Jason Spriggs, because he obviously gave up the position and the time in the pit lane. He actually hasn't given up the time that he would have had if he'd come out under green flags. Because he's come out under safety car, it's allowed him to be right up, back and behind Jason Spriggs' car. So all of a sudden, they're on equal fuel, equal machinery. It's now game on between them for P2. And if they can catch Logan Barnett, it'll be game on for P1 on the road as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because he was in a deficit to Jason Spriggs. Even though he was ahead of him on track, he was going to be seconds behind him if this race had stayed green. So that safety car has helped out that NZ car immensely, put him in that slipstream, given him a shot. You never know what could happen. It's put him in contention. Although he's got some handy drivers behind him. We talked about it in the break, Mac Muggleton. He was up to P6. He's made a position on track on this early safety start. Hamish, he's up into P5 at the moment. He's up 13 positions. Fantastic drive. He actually got past Ricky Hyde. I'm not sure what happened there, whether there was a slight mistake or something like that. Stalls is up 9 positions, Hamish. That is a great drive by that driver tonight. He's in P7. Damon Fisher, he's dropped a couple, but he's still hanging on to a top 10 position for Team AGR. That puts 2 of them into the top 10 of this race. Stacey Boyd, he's dropped out 5 positions. He's from Nova Sim Sport. He's in P9 at the moment. Still solid run by him, and Blanchard as well. He's gone back 3 positions, but he's still holding on to a top 10 as we see a bit of a gap from a Blanchard back to Brett Taylor.
So Brett Taylor, the only car not to come into pit lane under that safety car, has a pit stop to give up to the whole field. So we suspect he's going to end up at the back of the field as he continues to fight his way forward. Jamie Peters, Simon Heddersheed should be corrected P11 and P12. When Taylor comes down the lane, Grech will be corrected P13. Haynes and McMillan will then be in the corrected top 15 as well.
Do you think at this stage that Heddersheed and Peters, they're aware that Brett Taylor has to pit again? Or, you know, because if they think that he has to pit again, they need to push that pass on him now. They need to get it done. Well, as you see the WK and SimSport driver there in Matty McMillan, who's had a great race so far. He ran a little bit wide. That's let Haynes and Clifton easily pass through on him.
Yeah, as Scholes and McMillan continue to fight. Clifton now around them. McMillan getting left out to dry on the outside of the circuit as well. Weston involved. Vandermeulen's trying to find his way back up. He's had a bit of a loss here tonight as Vandermeulen here, Scotty. He's down 11 positions and had a long stop as well under that safety car pit stop. So Vandermeulen, unfortunately for him, on a bit of a net loss at the moment. Really struggling out there.
Yeah, and he would be on the same strategy as everyone else. So if he's going to make positions, he's got to get that done on track. So it's going to be a long drive for him. You can see he wants to be racy. He's going to have a look up the inside as they come into aptly named hairpin, which is turn 5. Got to be a little bit careful not to get the contact. Looks like Scotty Weston has that outside line. Just gave him a little bit more speed, a little bit more sweep. And as we see now, Fewens, we've only seen him race twice this season. He's centred up the inside on Vandermeulen. Vandermeulen seen it come and let him pass. So, yeah, he's not going forwards by any stretch of the imagination at the moment, Sean. Perhaps it's just a drive to you know, just get some more time in the seat and forget about the results overall and just enjoy his race.
So further back, we've also got Hasler trying to battle with Sanderson, Lovegrove, Bush, Zeal, Randall in this battle too. He's back where he started this race. Fisher just in behind. But for Hasler and Sanderson, I mean, Sanderson, we mentioned it earlier, below the par of where he's been this season, relatively speaking, Scotty. He's been up and around the top 10 every single round, and right now He's a bit further back than where he would hope to be. For Hasler, well, he's involved in a great battle. For Lovegrove, he's really outperforming himself at this stage. Jeremy Bush, he's been a quiet achiever this season, and tonight he's up 12 positions as Mick Clifton is now dropping back behind Scholes and McMillan. So their battle continues on between Maddie and Mick as they look ahead towards lap 33 when they cross the line. Is that another blown engine up ahead? I think it is. That's Stephen Greck. Another one of the old mate and sons cars has blown an engine.
That was an unusual spot to blow it there, because you're coming into there. Yes, you're in sixth gear. You're looking to come back into third, Hamish, but he must have had a double shift or something, because that engine blew very, very early.
It did, and unfortunately for him as well, he's actually towed back to pits without permission, so that will be Stephen Greck's night done and dusted. It's unfortunate for him, but that's it. Unfortunately, car 10 is now out of this race and will have a rear of grid on his next race start here in the Vets.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Perhaps just didn't quite think of it and just hit the escape button out of disappointment, which can easily happen too. I've seen it happen before. You forget to call it in that you need to tell, and you just hit your button and away you go, and you're like, oh, perhaps I shouldn't have done that. Maybe that was the situation, but definitely if they'd called another safety car, it might have helped out one of his drivers in Matt Muggleton there up into P5. That would have helped close that gap. We've seen him get a pass earlier on in the race under the safety car, or just after the safety car at the restart. He got it done on Ricky Hyde. Perhaps that would have given him an opportunity to get one done on Paul Burns as well.
And if you're Matt Muggleton, are you worrying now that the old mate and sons engines may be a bit weak? And your P5, you don't want to blow the engine if two of your teammates have done it.
Yeah, I would have thought that was a Mustang thing there, Hamish, but it did look like there was a Chevco as well back then. So, yeah, I don't think he'd be worried about it. He'd probably be disappointed for his teammates, as you are, He'd be well aware that it's happened, but, he's worried about his race. He can't do anything about what's going on for theirs or them, apart from have a chat about it later and give his teammates, a little bit of support, a bit of a shoulder to cry on as such, in a metaphoric term. But, what do you do, mate? You just got to get on with it, and you get to talk about it later and have a laugh here and there.
So if you're in Matt's position now and you're looking ahead to the rest of this race, you're in a pretty positive position. You're up 13 spots, P5. You got Burns ahead of you. I mean, you're in an 801 sim racing sandwich. You got Burns and Hyde either side of you. Do you try and battle one of them and hope the other doesn't try and back them up? Or do you just sit here for a little bit, let the tyres get up to temp, let the race come to you, and then push on for the battle between yourself and Paul ahead?
It's an interesting one, because you're right. He doesn't want to get into a fight yet. Not only does it bring Ricky Hyde, a teammate of the car he wants to battle with, but it could also separate the gap even further between Logsdale and Burns. So if he goes fighting too much, and we remember we're on lap 34 of 54, we've got 20 laps remaining. If he goes fighting too early, that could ruin a potential spot for a podium, because, they'll drop too much time and you will never make it back, especially if it blows out past 5 seconds. Very difficult to make it back, Hamish. So I think he's doing the right thing now. Just keep the pressure on Burns. If he makes an easy mistake, you can get the pass done, take it. But otherwise, hopefully he can stick within contact of Logsdale and then look as this race matures in its lap numbers, and then perhaps have a go then.
I think Vandermeulen just had a minor moment out of turn 4. He's now dropped further back behind Peter Baxter and Troy Sipple. So his night is only going from bad to worse. Mick Clifton as well has also had an off track. He's now in this battle with Jason Fewens and Brett Taylor as well. So Taylor's finally taken. No, he hasn't even taken that second stop. He's actually just naturally dropped back to P19. So his case is now going bad to worse when he needs that second pit stop in this race here, Scotty, because it was different when if he was coming in P12 now, or P11. Now he's having to come in at best P19. I'm sorry. It's arguably going to drop him all the way back to P36. You'd have to feel, seeing as it's around about a 35-second loss in the pit lane.
Yeah, it was a big missed opportunity for him, but he doesn't even get a bonus point from that, for leading a lap as well, Hamish. So yeah, he's got a lot of work to do. Maybe he wasn't too worried about it. Like, some of these drivers, they're out there just to have fun, race the best they can. But as a strategy-wise, that was a miss. And he's had a big send here. He's had a massive send. He's sending in there like he's on fresh tyres, Hamish. I don't know whether he's going to have the traction on the outside line to get it done. And it does look like Mick Clifton is carrying a little bit more damage there again on that front right quarter. So he's going to hold him off. And that was a pretty entertaining move there by Brett Taylor. So he still wants to race with these guys, mate.
He does. He wants to keep fighting. He wants to keep battling, even though he's out of the fight for these positions, relatively speaking, across this race. He wants to be in it still with these guys. He's out there for a fun night on track. He's not out there for the points. He's just looking to get some experience battling around some guys he may not normally be battling around with, which is great to see even in his position.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's his right to do it. I mean, he is on the lead lap. He can race as much as he wants, defence as much as he wants. I'm sure there's other drivers, they might get a little bit hot under the collar as such, because of it, because they're saying, hey, you're out of strategy with us, you're not racing us, what are you doing? But, when you're back down around that P20, I don't think it really matters, mate. And, at least from our perspective, anyway, in the commentary booth, it is entertaining. So, perhaps maybe not so much on track, but, yeah, from here it's looking good.
Well, further up the road, we've still got this battle between Heddersheed and Peters. Simon Haynes is now starting to get in on the party as well. I know that Scholes would want to get involved in this battle too. Bit of a lock-up, though, from Haynes just ahead. So he is pushing hard to try and get past the Infinity Motorsport machine of Jamie Peters at the moment. Bit of Mustang on Mustang battle for P12 on the road. Both of these guys up a chunk of spots. Haynes up 10. Peters is up 5. And they're both now inside the top 15 of this race as well. They both had, well, Peters has had an exceptional season to boot. Haynes has had some up and down performances, but when he's been up, he has been very impressive in this car.
Yeah, absolutely. He has been driving very well at times, other times perhaps not so well. But tonight's a good run by him. Up 10 positions. He's got Jamie Peters in front of him. Jamie's not going to let it go. He's definitely not going to let Simon Hedderstreet go as well, because that's another position for him just ahead. So this is really a 4-car battle. And, Haynes one of these guys. He's done really well when he was in Split 3, got promoted up, and thoroughly deserved it. But, he's got the maturity on him that he knows, like what I was talking about with Matt Mulvey. He doesn't need to fight just yet if he wants to gain an opportunity of a top 10 or top, 11 finish, gain a few places there. You've got Scholes as well, who has come back into this after probably not the best start to it. So this is definitely a 4-car battle as we see Peters. He is gaining on Hedderstreet, especially over the last lap.
Oh, Brett Taylor's off the road. And he's actually found the Shadow Realm. It's auto sending back to pit, so he's actually been selected by the gods of iRacing to take his pit stop here. Scotty, he has traversed it off the road at turn 1. What has happened to Brett Taylor? No, he's just found the Shadow Realm.
Yeah, he's found a warp hole, and that sent him, sent him somewhere else. So he's definitely in the Matrix back in pit lane, mate. But yeah, that's an interesting one, just to disappear like that, because even if he wanted to escape, he couldn't escape while he's moving. So something's definitely amiss there, mate.
Someone's had it off track, and it's Scott Weston. So all of a sudden, EWT are falling by the wayside here. The only one that's really surviving is Matt Stoyles. Weston off the road at turn 4, drops some spots, is now behind Troy Sipple. Luckily for him, he did not find the Shadow Realm door like what Brett Taylor did. And unfortunately for Taylor, he is now at the back of the field. Todd Duggan's off the road as well at turn 5 and has to wait for the whole field to come past him. It's all getting loose here. It's all happening, Scotty. And it's because we are an hour into this race. So it's roughly race time, 9:45 p.m.
Definitely a fatigue factor setting in. Also, the car's a little bit more heavier on fuel too, Hamish, something to consider. But the other thing that I think may be contributing to this is that marble build-up. Look at it right there.
There's a car spun round. Sorry, Scotty. That was Brett Fisher. Brett Fisher has been spun round. I think Dave Arney possibly was involved. He's dropped spots.
You see his pit limiter light is on. That's sometimes a sign
his engine's
of a blown
gone.
Engine.
Yeah, his engine's gone. Have we got another safety car? We do. So a second safety car has now been called. in amongst all of this chaos here, as Brett Fisher is now waiting for the tow truck to come and get him. So, the scenario at play is no one needs a pit stop to get home. We are 38 laps into this race. Do we see anyone coming in and taking a fresh set of rubber to the end?
Well, those towards the back end of the field may do. It wouldn't be a bad strategy at all. The one person that we were talking about that this may benefit is, was it Brett Taylor, who went a lap down from that pit stop that he had to do, Hamish. Perhaps he might be able to get himself back on the lead lap. Fresh tyres. Could be interesting. He showed that he wants to race.
Jamie saying that Brett might have been glitchy, and he very well may have. He might have had some internet issues. Also saying bloody good racing in Split 2. Well, it's the reason why it's been the cleanest split all season. This is probably the least clean it's been all season, Scotty, is tonight's race. This is the first real bad one that we've had.
Yeah, I kind of expected things to explode here, Hamish. I know I've talked about it a few times, but these marbles, these debris on track at this track, and even though Okayama is, it's a 1 minute 30 odd lap time around here, 32 under race conditions. It's quite a long track and it's quite wide. It narrows significantly with these Gen 3 cars, just the way you've got to drive and the way you've got to get them off. So the track becomes even narrower. Add in this new debris model, you start finding that you get offline a little bit. It does affect your grip immensely. You have to start searching for a different line to what you'd normally drive as the race goes on and more marbles, more debris come on track. So, yeah, it's not surprising. It's right about where I thought it is. Plus, we've got the 10 p.m. factor, Hamish. There is fatigue out there. These we're talking about V8 veterans, 40-plus-year-old drivers. We know some of us like to have an afternoon nap, and by all means, I'm one of them. But yeah, so there could be a little bit of fatigue in it as well, mate.
So Barella's now come in, possibly for an extra set of boots. It's taking about 10 seconds in pit lane, so I'd say he has come in for fresh boots. Look at this, though. Matt Muggleton, P4. So he's actually gotten past Paul Burns in all of this, Scotty. So he's now at 14 spots. He's going to be right on the back of Dean Logsdale. Could we see Matty get his first podium in Split 2 tonight?
How did that happen? Like, that must have happened just before the safety car, Hamish, and we missed that one because he was hunting around there. He was giving himself an opportunity. He was staying within that 0.8. But, something must have had to Burns for Matt to be able to get it past. But, yeah, you're absolutely right. This puts him within a podium contention.
One name I want to throw out there, though, Mr. Coleman's just reminded me of it, is Scotty Van Loon. Not here tonight. One of the championship contenders. We know he's missed around already this season, as Muggleton has a blink. So that's one thing he's going to have to be cautious of tonight, is that internet, which we know has plagued him before this season. So for Van Loon, he's now going to be on. He's now going to be on the pressure gauge rest of this season for the next 4 rounds. He's missed 2 rounds. That's his 2 drop rounds. If he wants to get back into those top 3 positions after 8 rounds in the championship, he's going to have to work at it in the last 4 rounds of the season. Snetterton, which we've not been to in over 2 years. Red Bull Ring, which we know throws up carnage. Sandown, which we know throws up carnage. And then 300Ks at Phillip Island, undroppable. And if you think back to round 1, season 18, throws up carnage. Van Loon's going to have to come back with some consistency, being able to take the pressure and just pushing on to try and claim that top 3 in the championship after 8 rounds, which is the new measuring stick for those who go up. It's now 8 rounds, not 6, if I'm correct.
I think it has gone out to 8 rounds as an average there, and I think that's quite right. Quite rightly so. I think that works a lot better than using the formula of 6 there, Hamish. But we see some lapped cars getting their lap back, which is good. That's one thing I do like about that, is how lap cars can get their lap back. But talking about Mr. Van Loon, he is a driver. He's came back from Split 1. Probably didn't have the greatest of seasons last season, but this season he is a round winner. Drove absolutely superbly, dominated his race. And for the other races that he's been in, he's shown very good consistency. Did find trouble in one of them, but recovered well. So you're absolutely right. If you put in the 2 drop rounds, he's just going to have to drive a very, very consistent. And if you look at Peter Baxter, like we talked coming into this round without drop rounds applied, he was in the top 10, Peter Baxter was. So consistency is key. I think Van Loom has got that. He's got a great team behind him in Fishy Motorsports. They'll be there supporting him, even though majority of them are in a split one. So, yeah, look forward to Van Loom. He could throw a spanner in the cards, especially on some of these tracks coming up that are well known to these drivers.
Well, we have now got confirmation as well. 1 drop round has now been applied to the championship points after round 6. And when we get the updated points for round 6, we will get drop rounds included, Scotty. So we will at least 1 drop round. So we'll have some idea of where certain drivers sit, especially those who've only missed 1 round thus far. But for Barnett, it's been a perfect season, a perfect run. Only 1 time he has been outside of the top 10. As he comes around the final corner, he goes green at the same spot he did last time. Green flag running back at Okayama as Barnett leads them away. Spriggs, Logsdale, Muggleton and Burns, your top 10. There's contact in the background. That was Fewens. So on the restart, controversy and chaos already here. Fewens gets back underway, but drops a heap of spots before turn 1. That heart will now be breaking a little bit, Scotty.
Yeah, that's an interesting one there because that looked like it was on the restart. Yes, you can have overlap from there, but you can't make contact either. So I'm not sure what happened. That did look like there was possible contact in that for the way that car behaved. Didn't look like it was a self-inflicted spin. So Jason Fewens, he's got a bit of work to do. Has only what's his 2nd race this one, Hamish,
yeah,
tonight?
Only his 2nd race of the season for Fewens. We have had confirmation, by the way, Ricky Hyde living in Vegas in Queensland. So yeah, we have had confirmation of that from Ricky in the chat. Thanks for letting us know, Ricky.
Yeah, well, our stalker mode was on early, Hamish, and we definitely knew it was in Queensland somewhere. Great state of Queensland. I hope the people up there that are dealing with the floods are doing well. I think there is a bit more water, rain, possibly another 200 mil coming their way. So, yeah, stay safe, the people in those rain-affected areas. We love you and hope to see you back soon.
Yep, very true. Oh, contact, though, with Hennessy and Blanchard. Hennessy's off the road. Fully floored, but fully punted off the road by Blanchard. Tucks it back. That's a nice... You know what? Someone might call for a poor rejoin, but he's tucked into the train quite nicely. Vandy Miller might be a little bit upset about that one, but he didn't make contact, and he got up to speed pretty well.
He actually got that off. I think Vandy Miller had seen it coming and got on the brakes, let him through. Gave that gap enough, but fully floored, fully punted. I'd say fully something else too, mate. And he'll have a little bit of red mist eyes forward, I think. And his night has gone from bad to worse.
Yeah, it really has. It has not been a positive run for him. Muggleton still plagued with those internet issues. So could his almost perfect run be ruined tonight by the router gods? Can he stay connected to the session for the next 13 or 12 and a half laps to the checkered flag and claim a top 5 finish once again this season? Oh, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm really, really impressed the way 801 Sim Racing in Paul Burns, Ricky Hyde are going. Oh, there we go. Is that another engine? He's still got that going.
That's Michael Schroeder.
Wow, he might struggle to get this back, Hamish. It's a long way, and look at the damage on the front right-hand side of that car. He's not going to be able to turn these corners. No way.
He's not indeed. We're going to have to go back to... We need to see this because this looks massive. So we're just going to click back here to when Ricky Hyde got past Matt Muggleton due to his disconnection. And then we'll click back to Michael Schroeder. So what has happened to Schroeder up at the exit of turn 4? You know we love doing a cheeky little look back if it's a massive incident like this one.
This is massive. That front right tyre was not even in the ground. It's buried that far into the engine bay and firewall. So it wasn't even turning.
Oh, he's getting loose. He's catching some marbles, gets loose, and then bang, straight in the wall. So the wheel actually came off and then went back on. So the wheel actually came off. And look, you can actually see the sparks coming off of that front wheel. If we actually go into, where is it? I think it's this one here. You can see the sparks on the ground coming past the rear right-hand tyre of Schroeder's car.
So that tyre just fully came off and then got stuck somewhere up into that front quarter panel.
As Fewens and Vandermeulen have come together as well. So that's another massive moment. And this is now an hour and 10 minutes into the race, Scotty. We're at around about 10 p.m.
Where we have to be past 10 p.m. Look at this car. It's coming up. He's somehow still steering that, Hamish. Fewens waited for Vandermeulen there. I would say that was on Fewens. Fewens has redressed that by waiting. I'd say there was an incident there with Fewens.
I must say, I'm actually quite taken aback. This is the first time I've ever actually seen sparks, aside from open wheelers. It's the first time I've actually seen sparks come off of a supercar as it's being driven back to pit lane. But unfortunately for Schroeder, that might be night done and dusted for him. For Barnett, well, he has got 12 laps to survive at the front of the field ahead of Spriggs and Logsdale. He's got a nice gap, though, over Spriggs, who now has to fly the flag for Accelerate Sim Racing. Logsdale looks to keep the gap between him and Muggleton. Does not want to give up his second podium of the season to Matty to take his first. Burns and Hyde, they've had a great run. Burns still restarted in P5. He's had a tough run all night, Scotty. He's done well to stay here. Stoyles has done well. He's up 9. Fisher down 2, Boyd down 5, Blanchard down 3. Peters now P11 on the road, up 6 positions, but still being put under pressure by the kid Simon Haynes.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to see Jamie Peters get this position done, but he's behind Blanchard, and Blanchard's got a wealth of experience. He won't give it up, especially with the amount of laps remaining. We're coming up to only 10. Simon Haynes is putting the pressure. He had a little bit of a look, and look how much ground he dropped on Peters just by throwing that car out, just to try and distract him. So that was interesting. He's got a bit more to make up. Perhaps he'll make it up over the next half a lap. But Hamish, I'm still getting over that car that had one front wheel, and he was still able to navigate this track. That was phenomenal. I don't know how he managed to turn it.
I've got magic. That's how. Michael Schroeder is a magician, it seems. And one driver, though, we cannot look past is Matt Scholes. We know what he's capable of, Scotty. We know that he can, on his best day, fight with anyone. He just has to get that confidence back in him. So, he might chuck a little cheeky send here or there, but sending it a bit too hard like that and getting caught out on the marbles is not going to help him, especially with Matty McMillan looking to get the job done up the inside. But Scholes just getting the run off the corner a little bit better than the WKMP Sim Sports car and has to defend now the inside line. That's a great defensive line from Scholes, but he's now giving up time to Haynes ahead.
Yeah, and behind that Matty McMillan, he's been driving exceptionally well, Hamish. I think he's been driving, one of the better drivers, been super consistent. Yes, he hasn't been getting up into the top 10s, but he's not far off it, matching it with the likes of Matty Scholes. So, yeah, well done to Matty McMillan from WKMP Sim Sports. I think he's been driving very, very well this season.
I think we have to shout him out. I think Matty has arguably driven one of his best seasons to date in Split 2. And this is arguably one of the toughest Split 2 fields we've ever had, as Damon Fisher's now getting plagued with some internet issues just ahead of this man, Stacey Boyd. You can see Ricky Hyde and Paul Burns trying to work together to keep these guys astray and in behind them, as Burns now lets Hyde go past him. Is he struggling at the moment?
Has he got a fuel issue? Did he not put enough in or something? Because there's no way he should be getting out of that and giving that position to Matthew Stoyles to let him get up behind his teammate Ricky Hyde. So I'm not sure whether that was a team orders, to let him go, and it didn't work out for him, Hamish.
He's
geez,
been
a little bit of
by
contact.
Fisher.
That's a push to pass, that one, you would have to say. He might have to give that back as a redress, I'm not sure. But, he might call that one in, I'm not sure. But
I think Paul's trying to save.
He's lifting. That is a
he's
big lift.
He's short shifting and he's lifting. I think Paul Burns has underfueled the car, and I think he did it expecting another safety car at this point.
And at the moment, he is getting tapped again. He's got a one off Blanchy. We're just talking about it. Blanchy's giving him a little tap, a little hurry up. So he's in all sorts of trouble, Hamish, is Paul Burns. To be fuel saving this far out to make it, that's a big fuel save.
He's giving up a lot of positions because of this as well. He'd almost be better coming in and taking a splash. Because the longer that this goes
Potentially.
on, the worse it's going to get for him.
Well, it's already led to contact. Yes, we talked about Damon Fisher gave him a little bit of a push there coming into turn 4, but that was effectively because of Paul Burns' fuel saving, getting out of the throttle early, perhaps braking a little bit earlier, and that's what caused that contact. So yeah,
Has he maybe
something to think
noticed?
about.
Has he maybe noticed a problem with his pedals? Maybe he's got something wrong with the brake or with the throttle, Scotty, that's actually forcing him to drive a little bit softer. Like, just not able to push the car so hard in case he breaks one of those pedals. Maybe like a spring or even some washers on the brake pedal, possibly.
It's happened before. It definitely has happened before. I've seen drivers finish race where the whole brake pedal came off the rig, and they were, it was kind of pretty much loose for them, apparently. So it's possibly, but that did look like a lift to me, Hamish. It looked like a big lift.
It does seem like a big lift, and right now he's got a massive trainer behind him. Look at Matty McMillan, though. Sends it on skulls at turn 7, or turn 6, I should say. No, even more corrections, turn 5. But they're still battling through 6 and 7. Neither of them want to give it up. McMillan forced onto the sand. This battle looks to heat up more and more.
Yeah, well, what that safety car, that last one, has done is compressed this field, and a few drivers have said, hey, I can get positions here. Matty McMillan is exactly one of them. That was a good send. I thought he was going to get that pass done, Hamish. He'll have to reset, look for another position, another lap to be able to get that position. But Matty Scholes, he hasn't had the greatest race tonight. He definitely doesn't want to lose another position, and he showed that.
He really doesn't. Paul Burns definitely is fuel saving at this stage. He's given up a mountain of time to Stacey Boyd. And the reason we're keeping an eye on this is because this has got some big championship implications. We know that Blanchard was in the battle for the title. He, of course, missed a round due to the 12-hour last weekend. He wants to get some crucial points as he's trying to force Burns out of the way, as Peters now sneaks on past. So Peters now inside the top 10, and he wants to have a go at Burnsy.
And here comes, thinking of Peters, here comes Blanchard back. He says to Peters, I don't want to lose that position. This has balked up everyone behind. We've got a whole contingency of cars decided to throw it out. Simon Haynes wants to get it back on Matty McMillan. Clifton has come back into it.
This could get scary because these guys are getting real feisty, real fast. Blanchard and Peters, or was there a little knock there? Peters has been forced wide at turn 5, up towards turn 6. McMillan wants the outside of him. Peters trying to hold this inside line. They're still together. McMillan runs it wide into the AstroTurf. Massive contact at turn 7. And McMillan's parked on the side of the road. Could this be another safety car?
Oh, I hope not. I hope he can get that car going. But because the field's all compressed, he's got to wait a long, long time to get that car turned, if he can start it and get it back on track. But he's still stationary. The car's running.
Yeah,
he's in third gear.
He's got no drive. Is he stuck?
No, he's not revving it.
I have a feeling. I have a feeling that, yep, it's not moving, and it's another Racecraft Simulations safety car. So our third of the night, we've gone a couple of weeks without one, and now it makes its return. So for Barnett, he will be absolutely sweating. But all he has to do is what he's been doing for each restart of the race. Just try and break away from Spriggs. Get that good restart. Spriggs should know by now where Barnett, puts the throttle on. So he can almost catch him out a little bit and maybe put the throttle on a little bit earlier. Just to try and get a run. Logsdale, he's got to try and defend against Muggleton. Hyde, he's there for the ride. He's up in P5. McMillan's still there. And then for Stoyles, he's had a great run. Peters, just outside the top 10 at the moment, in behind Blanchard. Haynes has had a great run. Sipple, up 17 positions into P13, has followed his teammate into the top 15. We've got less than 10 laps to go, Scotty. Where do we go in terms of who we're thinking about for driver of the day at the moment? Obviously, Barnett, if he wins, can't get it because that would be race winner. Where else are we looking? Because I think realistically, the front runners right now is Muggleton, Stoyles, who have both had a driver of the day award this season, Ricky Hyde, and then I think Troy Sipple. P13 up 17 spots. That's a great run from Troy, and definitely running above where he would normally be at this point.
Yeah, I'm on board with Ricky Hyder. As you know, we don't like to give it to people who have already received it because it is, as much as it is a Driver of the Day award, it is an encouragement award, and also if you don't set a qualifying lap, I think that makes you invalid. So I'm all on for Ricky Hyde. I don't mind the likes of Jamie Peters. We talked about it earlier. If he can get himself up into P10, I think that's a really good drive for him, Hamish. Definitely worthy of it. Simon Haynes and Troy Sipple. So I think out of those four, and you've got that little pack there of those three, whoever comes out of between Peters, Haynes and Sipple on top there, I think that may put them into the front-running contention against Ricky Hyde.
I think as well, further back, Nick Hasler actually had an off-track here under the safety car, dropped a couple of spots. Unfortunately, if you go off-track, the other cars have got any right to get past you. So unfortunately for Nick, he's now had a net loss under safety car here. Adrian Zeal has still stayed ahead of Shane Randall. So Randall is yet to be able to get past Zeal. Same for Caparonis on Randall in this battle pack. So these guys have been going at it the whole time. You can see Hasler there. So he'll be hoping he could get past them, but unfortunately for the rules, he cannot take back those positions that he's now lost after going off track under safety car.
Yeah, I'm still trying to unpack what happened with Matty McMillan there because, as you seen on his dash, third gear was up. He didn't have the telltale pit lane light on the back of the car, so the engine was still running. Whether he just couldn't get it off the wall,
maybe it was broken steering or a broken rear wishbone, maybe the rear wheels just weren't on the ground or something. I don't know. Yeah,
it was interesting because the wheels weren't spinning like they do when you're stuck. You know, that magnetic wall. So yeah, that was a really interesting one. Unless he had a broken transmission. I don't know if that's possible, but perhaps it was. But yeah, anyway, very unfortunate because he was looking very, very racy. But this safety car, if we suspect Paul Burns was on a fuel save, this is going to benefit him massively. So if he was on a major fuel save, and it looks like he still is, it looks like he's clutching big time there. This could benefit him, and we should see him really start to heat up, apply the pressure, if he can save the amount of fuel needed. Looks like he underfueled that car quite significantly.
I don't know if he can save enough to be able to push, but he might be able to save enough that he can just nurse it home. That might be the scenario that's at play now for Paul Burns. But that's a problem because he's got a fast and feisty pack of drivers right behind him. He's got Blanchard, Peters, Haynes, Sipple, Scholes, Clifton, Weston, Heddersheed, Baxter, Bush, Lovegrove, and Co., who will all be wanting to get past him. And those first 5 drivers, incredibly feisty tonight. The only one of them that wouldn't necessarily attack him is Scholes because that's his teammate. So
he's massively fuel saving here. You can see by the gap that he's got that's happening between him and Stacey Boyd under this safety car. He is trying to save every mil that he can. So he's right on the limit there, Hamish.
So we're on board with him.
He's got it in 4th gear and he's just ticking along, using as least as possible. I've seen some drivers, Hamish, where they'll turn the car on and off, leave it in 4 and then bump start it. That's how tight it can get for drivers at times.
He's clutching in, major clutch in. Well, if you recall, split 4 at Magny Core, Van Ree tried that, stalled the car, and had to pull it over. So that's the risky game you play when you do that strategy is if you're not going fast enough or you're in the wrong gear, you can actually fail to bump start it and then the car goes kaput and you need a tow because you can't get it back on the starter motor.
Yeah, right. Yeah, okay. It's interesting. One of the race control drivers, he's got his own YouTube channel called the 301. He is probably one of the best at fuel saving under safety car conditions that I've seen. He's very busy in the cockpit while he's doing it, but is an exceptional watch. So if you're ever interested to see it, make sure you check out one of his videos. He race controls for, or safety car driver perhaps, for the V8 Veterans, which we thank him for his time. But yeah, definitely something to learn off him. I've learned it off him as we watch Logan Barnett. Will he go early? He has gone early.
Yep, so he knew that Spriggs would be able to figure out at that point when he would normally go on the apex of the last corner. Caught him out, went early. That was brilliant play from Barnett. And look at this.
Logsdale's under immense pressure.
He is immense pressure from Muggleton. And so
Showed a little
Spriggs.
bit wide too.
Yep, Spriggs is under pressure too. So now it's crunch time. 4 laps to go in this motor race. For Spriggs, it's survival. For Logsdale, it's survival. For Muggleton, well, it's elation because he's just trying to push on, claim his first podium in Split 2, and hope that he knocks one of these guys out of the pecking order at the moment.
Well, he would absolutely have his eyes full of a podium here, Hamish, because you've got Logan Barnett. He's going to clear it. He's already cleared out almost 1.25 seconds to Spriggs. But Logsdale's right there. Those two drivers, Spriggs and Logsdale, they need to be careful. They don't want to find contact here. They don't want to drop massive positions under a safety car. Matt Muggleton, on the other hand, he's saying, hey, I'm going to send it. I want to be in there. If you give me the opportunity, boys, I'm going to put my old mate and son's car right up there, and I'll take that position from you.
So there's not much pressure from behind from Ricky Hyde, but Muggleton at the moment is pushing the old mate and son's Camaro to its absolute maximum to try and get it past Dean Logsdale and Jason Spriggs for P3 and P2 on the road. Barnett, could this be his 4th win of the season and the first time that he's gone 2 in a row in season 22? I mentioned earlier in the piece, earlier in the season, that if he can claim up to 6 wins this season, well, it'll be hard to look past him as one of those promotion drivers up towards Split 1. It'd be pretty much almost impossible for him to not go up. He'd have to have some very, very poor rounds. And with only 1 round that he finished outside of the top 10, and mind you, it wasn't too far out of the top 10. I think it was about P12 at the Nürburgring. He has been on absolute fire. Skulls, though, battle with Clifton. This has now started to heat up as well. Up towards turn 4. They've got Scott Weston in behind. Skulls sneaks it up the inside. Great move from Matty Skulls in the 801 Sim Racing car. Bit of a tail flick off the exit. Powers it now down towards turn 5. They've got Clifton and Weston still going at it in behind. Heddershee looks to get involved as well. So these guys look to continue this tangle. This little to and fro between them as Weston now sneaks through on Clifton. That's a great move from the West Australian.
That was a very good move. He's seen it unfold with Troy Sipple getting the move done on Scholes, so he wanted a little bit of it and he got it done. So very good move. We see a change there. Blanchard's got past Paul Burns up ahead. It looks like Burns is going backwards. Haynes is past again. He's going to come under fire even more here. He's dropping further, Hamish. Something's up there. Something's got to be up there.
Something's wrong. He's still saving. At this point,
this looks more than a fuel save.
Yeah, at this point, you just got to come in.
This has to be more than a fuel save, mate.
I have a feeling that he has. I honestly reckon he's got a throttle issue.
Yeah, there's got to be an issue there. That's something's just NQR big time. He's just dropped way down the order. Well, this has really helped out Jamie Peters' chances for driver of the day. That puts him up into the top 10. He's right behind Blanchard too, Hamish. Simon Hayes is there. Troy Sipple. This is a very interesting pack at the moment, these 3 cars, although Sipple's dropped off a little bit, I believe, or perhaps not. But, yeah, this is a good one. See if the Quantum racing teammates of Simon Haynes and Troy Sipples can gang up on the Simfinity Motorsports car of Jamie Peters. And it looks like Simon Hayes, he's got that job done very easily down that back straight.
Yeah, Peters did not want to let him go. But Haynes sent it up the inside, got the job done in the end. Burns is still dropping spots. So this is like, what is wrong with this car?
It's not even a fuel save.
It's not even a fuel save. The car's just broken. Because if you're fuel saving to get home at this point, why would you not just pit?
No, it's got to be technical issues. I think even Ricky might have said in the chat, he's got some tech issues. Makes sense to me because that's
that's the only thing that really explains it at this point.
Very, very unfortunate for him.
Yeah, very unfortunate. We have had 6 or 7 drivers drop out of this race thus far. Daniel Sheriffs, Matt McMillan, Michael Schroeder, Brett Taylor, Brett Fisher, Stephen Greck, and Andrew Hoffman are your non-finishers at this stage. Greck, the only disqualified driver for towing back to pit lane without permission. He will also get a rear of grid at his next race start here in the Vets. For Barnett, well, he's only got 1 lap to go before he claims his first win on an even-numbered round, and the first time he would claim 2 wins in a row this season as well. It has been... He's driven extraordinary. Like, just a class above the rest all season.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, somehow he found himself back into split 2, and he has shown and he has really said, hey guys, you shouldn't have put me here. And he's got his eyes forward, same as Spriggs. Been an absolute display of beautiful driving by the 9.5 Sim Sports driver in Logan Barnett. And he's going to get another win here. Very, very easily done. Well deserved. Looks like Spriggs and Logsdale are going to round out the top 3, but coming around, not far to go now, Hamish. A couple more turns and he brings it home.
Only a couple more corners, and it's only a couple more points that Barnett is gaining over Spriggs in the championship, so he's still within the fight, is Jason Spriggs. But around the final couple of corners now for the final time this evening, after 200 Ks and 54 laps for 9.5 Sim Sports, Logan Barnett takes his 4th win of the season at Okayama. And it'll be the first time that he's taken 2 wins in a row all season long. Spriggs across the line, P2. Logsdale gets a 2nd podium in a row. And Muggleton will come home P4 on the road with Ricky Hyde making up your top 5. In the end, Simon Haynes is the one of those 3 to get into the top 10 for his first top 10 of the season.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant drive by Simon Haynes, followed very closely by Jamie Peters. Unfortunately, lost that position. Could have been a top 10 finish for him. Troy Sipple, Matthew Scholes, Mick Clifton, Scott Weston rounds out your 15. Great drive by the EWT racing driver there, Scotty Weston, up 13 positions into P15, Hamish. Simon Hedrick achieved a night he would want to forget. Peter Baxter up 20 positions, didn't qualify, but made P17 in race. Does what he always does, Hamish, makes positions in the race. That's why he is in the top 10 in the championship after 5 rounds. Jeremy Bush, P18. Derek Lovegrove, a good race, up 16 positions into P19. Wayne Sanderson rounds out your top 20. He is up 6 positions.
So just for the rest of our top 10, we also have Matt Stoyles, P6, Damon Fisher, P7, Stacey Boyd, P8, Chris Blanchard, P9, and then, of course, Simon Haynes inside your top 10. We've got to determine, Scotty, who's our driver of the day, because, there's quite a few names we could talk about. We could talk about the fact of... we can talk about Muggleton, up 14. That would be his 2nd driver of the day nomination this season. We could talk about Ricky Hyde, who hasn't had one this season, which would be that would be an exceptional run from him. We could talk about Haynes, P10, up 13. Stoyles up 10 into P6, but he's also already had one this season as well. And we do like to share it around a little bit for some drivers.
For me, Hamish, I did like Ricky Hyde, but I tell you, Simon Haynes, to get himself up into P10, it's his first P10 of the season, up 13 positions. He got that move done on Jamie Peters late in the race. I thought that was a deserving a driver of the day nomination. He's done those positions on track, and I thought he drove it very, very well.
Yep. So to keep our kind of tradition running of giving it to a different driver every week and not trying to get double ups throughout the season, Simon Haynes of Quantum Performance Racing or Quantum Racing has come across the line. P10 tonight, up 13 spots, and is your Chubby Buns Burgers driver of the day this evening for round number 6 of season 22. We had Barnett, Spriggs, and Logsdale on the podium. We'll see if any of them come for a chat here this evening. We'll give them maybe 2. We'll give them 5 minutes. We'll quickly run through the championship standings as of this point.
Probably a couple of other shout outs we need to give. Adrian Zeal, we talked about him a lot tonight, Hamish. One of his 11. Best results. Up 11 positions into P21. Shane Randell, what a drive by him. He ended up making 7 positions up into P22 after that first lap incident, pitting on lap 2, went the alternate strategy. It paid off for him, mate. In hindsight, Jim Caparotto's the night to forget. Nick Horsler, good race, up 9 positions. Rick Viger, another night to forget. Found himself in a little bit of trouble with his brother there, Chad. Richard Barella, quiet achiever, up 8. And after there, we have drivers going backwards in. Arnie went back 14. Van Mullen, night for him to forget. He won't like that, back 19. Chad Viger, he had that spinner earlier on mid-race, down 10 positions. Todd Duggan went backwards. Jason Fewens, a night for him to forget. I think he got a incident point or two there. Paul Burns, well, he had that tech issue. Very unfortunate because he was running in the top 5 pretty much all night. Daniel Sheriffs is your 2 laps down. He will still get in and get points for this. And Matt McMillan, after that late racing incident, he had that issue where he's stuck on the wall or something there. He will still get points because he finished 75%. He's 2 laps down, 34. Michael Schroeder, I think he's down a couple of laps as well. He ended up making a position. Brett Taylor, Brett Fisher, Stephen Greff, and Andrew Hoffman, they all did not complete the race.
So I just want to give a quick shout out as well to Derek Lovegrove up 16 tonight, Jeremy Bush up 21, Peter Baxter up 20 as well. Continuing that consistent run this season is Mr. Baxter. He's found himself in the top 10 for a reason. He's been consistent all season long. At this stage, after 1 drop round being counted, Logan Barnett now with 4 wins next to his name, 5 top 5s next to his name. All of his top 10s he's finished inside the top 5. He leads the championship on 914 points into next week at Snetterton. 24 points adrift of Jason Spriggs in P2. Barnett has not given up the lead of the championship ever since the end of round 1. He has he's had that orange number next to his name every single round of the season, barring round 1 when we had no leader of the championship. Ricky Hyde, after a drop round, has now been promoted up to P3, 842 points. So if he has a good run and Barnett misses a round or gets caught up in some action, all of a sudden he's then back into it. Matt Muggleton, P4 in the title race, 822 points. Wayne Sanderson, unfortunately, drops back to P5 in the corrected championship standings on 804 points. Dean Logsdale, 796. Stacey Boyd, 791. Chris Blanchard, after his drop round has now been taken away, the 0 that he had last week, 785. He's P8. Jim Capper is P9 on 781. Jamie Peters is inside the top 10 of the championship on 757 points. So that battle between him and McMillan actually becomes quite a bit adrift. So McMillan actually drops a lot further back than what Peters does, because I believe Peters does have a 0 next to his name for one of the rounds. So that's why that battle is now separated quite a fair bit between them. It was either that or he had a very poor round, I believe, at Magny Core, which is, some very poor points that he actually drops. So it's an interesting championship season, Scotty. It's interesting how it can play out. And for these drivers here this evening, it's interesting how it can all come apart for some of them out on the circuit. Next week, though, we head out to Snetterton over in the UK for round 7. 200 Ks to come your way for the Snetterton 300 variant of the circuit. There's been some, we'll call it fallacious comparisons to the circuit layout. But I think, for the first time we've been here in over 2 years, I'm excited because this is the first time I ever actually get to call a race at this circuit. In fact, the only reason I own it is because it was one of the last tracks I needed to buy, and then it was made free by the iRacing service. So it's the only reason why I actually have it in my catalogue.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, the Snetterton, and there is an outline of that track, especially the outer circuit, that does ring a bell. But what I can tell you for Logan is I did see a picture of him today enjoying some sunshine there, Hamish, after his victory here at Okayama, sipping pina coladas there, and we may not see him back until mid-week. So perhaps that gives an opportunity for some other drivers, but not surprised to see Ricky Hyde up into P3, Hamish. I think he's driven superbly this season. Very happy for him. Really stoked for Dean to be able to back up his P3 again tonight. That's an achievement in himself. Matt Muggleton, Joe McKnight talked about him into the chat tonight, and we thank all those who joined and tuned in and commented in the chat. That was absolutely fantastic of you, but he did mention he's known Matty Muggleton for quite some time and is an extremely fast driver, and I think we haven't seen the best of that driver just yet, so there's quite a few to come. We've got another 4 rounds left, is that right, Hamish? So I think it's going to really mix it up, but Snetterton next week, tough track, Hamish. Looking forward to getting in the rig and driving it. Looking forward to seeing this split to broadcast as well, and how these drivers go about it, because this championship is involving, these drivers are involving with the Gen 3 car, and things are looking very, very good for this league, the way these Split 2 drivers are driving in V8 Veterans.
So one thing we need to look at, just quickly leading into next week, is some license points issues. Also, penalties to be applied. So we mentioned that Stephen Grech has the rear of grid for his next round that he participates in the Vets. If that's next week, he'll have the rear of grid. Matt Scholes and Todd Duggan have both now accumulated 20 license points next to their names. They will have pit lane starts as of their next vet start as well. So if that's next week, if all three of them start next week's race, we will have 3 drivers starting technically at the back of the field, 2 of them not being able to take part, or all 3 of them not being able to take part in qualifying.
Yeah, that's a very interesting, and it's got some implications there because they are some fast drivers, rear grid. They're going to be trying to push on through. We'll have to see how the Gen 3 goes at Snetterton. I'm not sure on the overtakes there. We've got that little tricky infield circuit, which I don't think many overtakes will get done in that section. We'll have to wait and see. I have to get on track and do it myself. But yeah, going to be interesting. I'm really looking forward to it. We're over that halfway point, 6 rounds done, Hamish. We're coming up to round 7. So it's been a fantastic season. Drivers are driving absolutely beautifully. It could be anyone's championship. We know he's got, at this stage with 1 drop round, he's got that little bit of 20-point margin, which is absolutely fantastic. But gee whiz, there's a lot of drivers that are hungry for him. A lot of drivers are driving very well and finding form as this season goes on.
Well, next week, for the first time in over 2 years, we'll go racing at Snetterton. We so look forward to being there once again. I look forward to seeing how the drivers contest with it, being able to call a race there for the first time. It's going to be absolutely extraordinary. It's good to have some different tracks on the calendar and not have the same thing every 2 seasons or 3 seasons or 4 seasons. It's good to shake it up just a little bit. But massive shout out to all of our series sponsors, including our title sponsors, Racecraft Simulations, for supporting the V8 Veterans, as well to Logitech G, Parramatta, Isuzu, Player One Sim Gear, Nova Sim Sports, Sud Speed Gloves, LGC Images, and to Chubby Buns Burgers for providing us with the Driver of the Day award. This week it went to Simon Haynes. Next week it could go to you. Just try and impress us and get inside the top 10. Or you might even get into a good battle and finish outside the top 10 in an extraordinary drive. Who knows? We'll see if we decide that you are the lucky one. But for myself, Hamish Munro Scott Gamble alongside, appreciate your time. Appreciate you being here with us once again. Be sure to hit the like, the subscribe, and the bell icon as well, so you're notified whenever we go racing here on the V8 Veterans channel. Tomorrow night, 6:30 p.m. New Zealand Standard, or New Zealand Daylight Savings Time. 8:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. It will be the Split 3 broadcast, thanks to the way of AJR Broadcasting with Andrew Johnston and co in the booth once again for the Split 3 race out at Okayama. So be sure not to miss it. Be sure to join them and come and help them along the way. But until next time, we'll see you guys next week for Snetterton. Stay safe, drive hard, and as always, bye for now.
I ain't playing weak, no, I'm playing for keeps. Can't stop me, I'm a legend. I run with the crew that's making the moves. Get out of the way, we coming through. We got this, never stopping, and we won't lose. No, we can't lose. Yeah. Are you ready? Yeah. We are the legends. We are the legends. Yeah. Are you ready? We are the legends. We are the legends.
The Racing Series is a new milestone in Logitech G.
All the great old wheels, the G29, the G920, the G923, they all have their own unique way of connecting to each other, but there's no room for expansion with those products.
So the question arose was, what if we were to give the opportunity for the racer to switch out from a drifting wheel to a GT rim?
With the wheel hubs that we created, that's got a very specific button set, but you can replace any of the steering wheels.
And the real lovely aspect to this was we could give the user, driver and the racer the opportunity to experience different genres of race.
That allows drivers to craft high quality, customized setups that resonate with your individual racing style.
When we start with the design, we always start sketching. Very often, once we've got sketches, we start discussing with engineering.
We had 3 rounds of engineering testing or user testing where we invited in users from sim racing, and every single round of feedback we refine, the product based on what they tell us.
In the sim racing lab, again, we're going to use data to really analyze what a driver needs. We've used everything from eye tracking to the inputs from the pedals, the inputs from the, let's say, input devices, the wheel and the pedals, the shifter. We're taking that and we're compiling it so that we can build different products based on those individuals' needs for all consumers and all drivers.
I don't know of anyone else in the industry that's actually doing this kind of research into their products to see how their products are affecting performance of their users.
We've built the product to make sure that it's as reliable as possible.
So the innovations in engineering that I'd say we're most proud of is the sequential handbrake and shifter toolless changeover. This is now a patented system, so it's really easy for the user to just switch between modes.
If you give people the tools to do what they want, they will.
They will just go off and have fun.
Introducing the Rackraft PT1, custom-built full chassis racing simulator. The design project, codenamed The Cage, an 80/40 extrusion chassis sitting on top of a Sigma Integrale DK2 Plus 4-point full motion actuator system. No compromises in the cockpit of the PT1 simulator. To maximize the experience, we start with the 49-inch ultra-wide monitor for the greatest field of view in a small footprint of the simulator, down to the SimuCube wheelbase that's tucked up and behind the monitors with SimCore extensions to get things out of the driving area. Everything is connected to a Cube Controls GTX steering wheel with the built-in dash and all the extra button functions available at your fingertips. Driving through the Raceworks S1 pedals, the potentiometer throttle and the 2 hydraulic pedals for brake and clutch ensures you maximize the feel underfoot, and seating yourself into an OMP HTER bucket racing seat with OMP belts connected to a G-belt tensioner to provide that extra feeling and the heightened experience while you're driving. Additional interfaces and accessories in the PT1, we have twin butt kickers, one on either side of the OMP seat, as well as a Jinx sequential shifter, the SimPush Race Logic timer to the left-hand side, a Racecraft built-in WinSim kit with Philips Hue lighting and a built-in soundbar, plus the OMP side net to finish off the experience in the PT1. The Racecraft PT1, build number 1, the ultimate in sim racing experience, combining the best products in the market with the passionate, no-compromise approach that goes beyond racing simulation.
Too much left to come on.